Chapter Roman 38 Sir Richard pries into Todd's secrets. Crotchet soon reached the attic floor of the shoemaker's house, and although in profound darkness, he managed, as he thought, to touch the right door. Tap, tap, went Crotchet's knuckles, and as he did so he followed a habit very general, when the knock is only a matter of ceremony, and opened the door at the same moment. He popped his head into a room where there was a light, and said, "Here yer is." A scream was the reply to him, and then Crotchet saw, by the state of affairs there, that he had made a little mistake in the topography of the attic landing. The attic in which he found himself, for he had crossed the threshold, was in the occupation of an elderly gaunt-looking female, who was comforting her toes by keeping them immersed in a pan of water by the side of a little miserable fire, which was feebly pretending to look cheerful in the little grate. "Lor, mum," said Crotchet, "who'd 'a thought o' seeing of you? Oh, you monster, you base man, what do you want here? Nothink. Be off with you, or else I'll call the perlice." "Oh, I'm a-going, mum." "How do you bring it in, mum? In a general way? Help! Murder! Lord bless us, what a racket! Don't you go for to fancy, mum, that I comed up these here attic stairs for to see you. Quite the rewerse, mum." "Then, pray who did you come to see, you big ugly monster you? The other attic is empty." "Oh, you base infidel, I believe I knows what men are by this time." "No doubt on it, mum. Howsomedever this here's the wrong door, I take it. No harm done, mum. I wish you and your toes, mum, a remarkably good evening." "Crotchet," said a voice, "here yer is." Sir Richard Blunt had been attentively listening for Crotchet, and when he heard the screams of the old lady in the next attic, he opened the door of his apartment and looked out. He soon discovered what was amiss, and called out accordingly. "Bless us, who's that?" "The Emperor o' Russia, mum," said Crotchet. "He's took that before attic next to you, 'cause he's heard so much o' the London chumbly pots, and he wants to have a good look at them at his leisure." With these words, Mr. Crotchet left the old lady's attic, and closed the door carefully, leaving her, no doubt, in a considerable state of bewilderment. In another moment he was with the magistrate. "Crotchet," said Sir Richard, "I thought I told you to do this thing as quietly as you possibly could." "Down as a hammer, sir." "I think it is anything but down. Right as a trivet, sir, with a hextra leg. Lots o' fear, but no danger. Now for it, Sir Richard. What lay is we to go on?" It certainly never occurred to Sir Richard Blunt to hold any argument with Mr. Crotchet. He had long since found out that he must, if he would avail himself of his services, and for courage and fidelity he was unequaled, put up with his eccentricities. So upon this occasion he said no more about Crotchet's mistake, but, after a few moments' pause, pointing to the attic door, he said, "Secure it." "All's right." Crotchet took a curious little iron instrument from his pocket, and secured it into the wall by the side of the door. It did not take him more than a moment to do so, and then, fully satisfied of the efficacy of his work, he said, "Let 'em get over that if they can." While he was so occupied, Sir Richard Blunt himself had opened the window, and fastened it open securely. "Now, Crotchet," he said, "look to your pistols." "All's right, sir." The magistrate carefully examined the priming of his own arms, and seeing that all was right, he at once emerged from the attic through the window onto the parapet of the house. He may have crept along the gutter just within the parapet, but the gutter aforesaid was not exactly in the most salubrious condition. Truly, from its filthy state, one may have fancied it to be peculiarly under the direction of the city commissioners of sewers. Crotchet followed Sir Richard closely, and in a moment or two they had traversed a sufficient portion of the parapet to find themselves at the attic window of Todd's house. It would have been next thing to a miracle if they had been seen in their progress, for the roof was very dark-colored, and the night had fairly enough set in, so that if anyone had by chance looked up from the street below, they would scarcely have discovered that there was anybody creeping along the parapet. Now there was a slight creaking noise for about half a minute, and then the window of Sweeney Todd's attic swung open. "Come on," said Sir Richard, and he softly alighted in the apartment. Crotchet followed him, and then the magistrate carefully closed the window again, and left it in such a way that a touch from within would open it. Then they were in profound darkness, and as it was no part of the policy of Sir Richard Blunt to run any unnecessary risks, he did not move 1 inch from the place upon which he stood until he had lighted a small hand lantern, which had a powerful reflector and a tin shade, which in a moment could be passed over the glass, so as to hide the light upon an emergency. "Now, Crotchet," he said, "we shall see where we are." "Reither," said Crotchet. By holding the light some height up, they were able to command a good view of the attic. It was a miserable-looking room. The walls were in a state of premature decay, and in several places lumps of mortar had fallen from the ceiling, making a litter of broken plaster upon the floor. It was entirely destitute of furniture, with the exception of an old stump bedstead, upon which there lay what looked like a quantity of old clothes. "Safe enough," said Sir Richard. "Stop," said Crotchet. "What's the matter? There's something odd on the floor here. Don't you see as the dust has got into a crevice as is bigger nor all the other crevices, and goes right along this ways and then along that ways? Don't you move, sir. I'll be down upon it in a minute." Mr. Crotchet laid himself down flat upon the floor, and then crept on until he came to that part of the flooring which had excited his suspicions. As soon as he pressed upon it with both his hands, it gave way under them plainly, by the elevation of the other end of the 3 boards of which this trap was composed, proclaiming that it was a movable portion of the floor, revolving or turning upon one of the joists as a center. "Oh dear, how clever," said Crotchet. "If Mr. Todd goes on a cutting away his joists in this here way, he'll bring his blessed old house down with a run some day. How nice and handy. Now, if any one was to step upon here, they'd go down into the room below, and perhaps break their blessed legs as they went." The secret trap discovered in Todd's house. The secret trap discovered in Todd's house. "Escape the first for us," said Sir Richard. "Oh, lor, yes. Now this here Todd thinks, by putting this here man-trap here, as he has perwited again any accidents, but we ain't them before sort o' birds as is catched by chaff, not we. Why, he must have spilted his blessed ceiling down below to make this here sort of a jiggamary concern. It's not a bad contrivance though, Crotchet. Its own weight, you see, restores it to its place again, and so there's no trouble with it. Oh dear, no. It's a what I calls a self-acting catch who can sort o' machine. Yes, Sir Richard, I never did think that before Todd was worry green. He don't know quite so much as we know, but yet he's a rum on. No doubt of it. Do you think, Crotchet, there is anything else in this attic to beware of?" "Not likely." When he'd finished this here nice little piece of handiwork, "I dare say," he said to himself, "this will catch 'em," and so downstairs he toddled, and grinned like a monkey as has swallowed a whole nut by accident, and gived himself a pain in the side in consequence. "That'll catch 'em," says he. Mr. Crotchet seemed so much amused at the picture he drew to himself of the supposed exultation of Todd, that for some moments he did nothing but laugh. The reader must not suppose, however, that in the circumstances of peril in which they were, he indulged in a regular ha. Quite the contrary. He had a mode of laughing under such circumstances that was entirely his own, and which, while it made no noise, shook his huge frame as though some commotion had taken sudden possession of it. And the most ridiculous part of the process was the alarming suddenness with which he would become preternaturally serious again. But Sir Richard Blunt knew his peculiarities, and paid no attention to them, unless they very much interfered with business. "We must not waste time. Come on, Crotchet." Sir Richard walked to the door of the attic, and tried it. It was as fast as though it had been part of the wall itself. So, he said. "Master Todd has taken some precautions against being surprised from the top of his house. He has nailed up this door as surely as any door was ever nailed up." "Has he really, though?" "Yes. Quick, Crotchet. You have your tools about you, I suppose." "Never fear," said Crotchet. "I'm the individual as never forgets nothink." and if I don't have the middle panel out o' this door a'most as soon as look at it, it's only 'cause it takes more time." With this philosophical and indisputable remark, Mr. Cratchit stooped down before the door, and taking various exquisitely made tools from his pocket, he began to work at the door. He knocked nearly noiselessly, and it looked like something little short of magic to see how the panel was forced out of the door without any of the hammering and flustering which a carpenter would have made of it. "All's right," he said. "If we can't creep through here, we are bigger than I think we is. That will do. Hush." They both listened attentively, for Sir Richard thought he heard a faint noise from the lower part of the house. As, however, 5 minutes of attentive listening passed away, and no repetition of it occurred, they thought it was only some one of those accidental sounds which will at times be heard in all houses whether occupied or not. Cratchit took the lead by creeping clearly enough through the opening that he had made in the door of the attic, and Sir Richard followed him. They were both, now, at the head of the staircase, and Sir Richard held up the lantern so as to have a good look around him. The walls looked damp and neglected. There were 2 other doors opening from that landing, but neither of them was fastened, so that they entered the rooms easily. They took care, though, not to go beyond the threshold for fear of accidents, although it was very unlikely that Tod would take the trouble to construct a trapdoor in any other attic than the one which was so easily accessible from the parapet. Old clothes," said Cratchit. "There seems to be nothing else in these rooms." "So it would appear," said Sir Richard. He lifted up some of the topmost of a heap of garments upon the floor, and a cloud of moths flew upwards in confusion. "There's the toggery," said Mr. Cratchit, "of the smugged uns." "You really think so? Knows it? Well, Cratchit, I don't think from what I know myself that we shall disagree about Todd's guilt. The grand thing is to discover how and in what way he is guilty." "Just so. I'm quite sure we have seed all as there is to see up here. So suppose we toddle downstairs now, sir. There's, perhaps, quite a lot o' wonders and nater and are down below. Stop a bit. Hold the lamp." Cratchit did so, while Sir Richard took from his pocket a pair of thick linsey-woolsey stockings, and carefully drew them on over his boots, for the purpose of deadening the sound of his footsteps, and then he held the light, while Mr. Cratchit, who was similarly provided with linsey-woolseys, went through the same process. After this, they moved like spectres, so perfectly noiseless were their footsteps upon the stairs. Sir Richard went first, while Cratchit now carried the light, holding it sufficiently high that the magistrate could see the stairs before him very well. As he proceeded, it was quite evident, from the state of those stairs, as regarded undisturbed dust, that they had not been ascended for a considerable time, and truly, Tod, considering the top of his house as perfectly safe after the precautions he had taken, did not trouble himself to visit it. Our adventurers reached the landing upon the second floor in perfect safety, and after giving a few minutes more to the precautionary measure of listening, they opened the first door that presented itself to the observation, and entered the room. They both paused in astonishment, for such a miscellaneous collection of matters as was in this room could only have been expected to be met with in the shop of a general dealer. Several chairs and tables were loaded with wearing apparel of all kinds and conditions. The corners of the room were literally crowded with mobs of swords, walking sticks, and umbrellas, while a countless heap of hats lay upon the floor in disorder. You could not have stepped into that room for miscellaneous personal appointments of one sort or another, and Mr. Cratchit and Sir Richard Blunt trod upon the hats as they walked across the floor, from sheer inability to get out of the way. "Well," said Cratchit, "if so be as shaving should go out of fashion, Tod could set up a clothier's shop, and not want for stock to begin with." "I can imagine," muttered the magistrate to himself, "what a trouble and anxiety all these things must be to Tod, and woolen goods are so difficult to burn. Cratchit, select some of the swords and look if there are makers' names upon the blades." While Cratchit was preparing this order. Chapter Roman 39. The Mysterious Cupboard. "Here they are," said Cratchit. "Some of these are worth something. get a cane or two, likewise. All's right, sir. I tell you what it is, sir. If there's such things as ghosts in the world, I wonder how this Todd can sleep o' nights, for he must have a plaguey lot of 'em about his bed of a night. Perhaps he satisfied himself upon that head, crotchet, before he began his evil practices, for all we know. But let us make our way into another room, for I think we have seen all there is to see in this one. Not a doubt of it. It's only a kind of storeroom, this, and from the size of it, I should say it ain't the largest on this floor. Sir Richard walked out of the room onto the landing place. All was perfectly still in the barber's house, and as he had heard nothing of the bugle sound in Fleet Street, he felt quite satisfied that Todd had not returned. It was a great thing, in all his daring exploits in discovering criminals, and successfully ferreting out their haunts, that Sir Richard could thoroughly depend upon his subordinates. He knew they were not only faithful but brave. He knew that, let what may happen, they would never leave him in the lurch. Therefore, in the present instance, he felt quite at his ease in the house of Todd, so long as he did not hear the sound of the bugle. Of course, personal danger he did not consider, for he knew he was, if evening he had been alone, more than a match for Todd. But what he wanted was not to overcome Sweeney Todd, but to find out exactly what were his practices. He could, upon the information he already had, have walked into Todd's shop at any time and have apprehended him, but that would not have answered. What he wanted to do was to pluck out the heart of his mystery, and, in order to do that, it was not only necessary that Todd should be at large, but that he should have no hint that such a person as he, Sir Richard Blunt, had his eyes wide open to his actions and maneuvers. Therefore was it that, in this examination of the house, he wished to keep himself so secret and free from any observation. There were 3 rooms upon the second floor of Todd's house, and the very next one they met with was the one immediately beneath the trap in the floor of the attic. A glance at the ceiling enabled them easily to perceive it. This room was larger than the other considerably, and in it were many boxes and chests, as well as in the center an immense old-fashioned counting-house desk, with 6 immense flaps to it, 3 upon each side, while a brass railing went along the middle. "Ah," said Sir Richard, "here will be something worth the examining, I hope." "Let's take the cupboards first," said Crotchet. "There are 2 here, and as they are the first we have seen, let's look at 'em, Sir Richard. I never likes to be in a strange room long without a peep in the cupboard." "Very well, Crotchet. Look in that one to the left, while I look in this one to the right." Sir Richard opened a cupboard door to the right of the fireplace in this room, while Crotchet opened one to the left. "More clothes," said Sir Richard. "What's in yours, Crotchet?" "Nothing at all. Yet stay, there's a something high up here. I don't know what it is, but I'll try and reach it if I can." Crotchet went completely into the cupboard, but he had no sooner done so than Sir Richard Blunt heard a strange crushing sound, and then all was still. "Hilloa, what's that, Crotchet?" He hastily stepped to the cupboard. The door had swung close. It was evidently hung upon its hinges in a manner to do so. With his disengaged hand, the magistrate at once pulled it open. Crotchet was gone. The astonishment of Sir Richard Blunt for a moment was excessive. There was the flooring of the cupboard perfectly safe, but no Crotchet. Nothing to his eyes had looked so like a magical disappearance as this, and with the trap in his hand he stood while any one may have counted 20, completely motionless and transfixed by astonishment. Starting then from this lethargic condition, he drew a pistol from his pocket and rushed to the door of the room. At this instant, he heard the bugle sound clearly and distinctly in the street. Before the echo of the sound had died away, the magistrate was upon the landing place outside the door of the second floor. He listened intently and heard someone below coughing. It was not the cough of Crotchet. What was he to do? If he did not make a signal to the officers in the street that all was safe, the house would soon be stormed, and, for all he knew, that may ensure the destruction of Crotchet, instead of saving him. For a moment, the resolution to go down the staircase at all hazards and face Todd, for he had no doubt but that he had come home, possessed him. but a moment's reflection turned the scale of thought in another direction. If the officers, not finding him make a signal that he was safe, did attack the house, they would not do so for some minutes. It was their duty not to be precipitate. He leant on the balustrade and listened with an intentness that was perfectly painful. He heard the cough again from quite the lower part of the house, and then he became aware that someone was slowly creeping up the stairs. He had placed the slide over the bull's eye of his little lamp so that all was darkness, but he heard the breathing of the person who was coming up towards him. He shrunk back close to the wall, determined to seize, and with an iron hand, any one who should reach the landing. Suddenly, from quite the lower part of the building, he heard the cough again. The thought, then, that it must be Cratchit who was coming up, impressed itself upon him, but he would not speak. In a few moments someone reached the landing, and stretching out his right arm, Sir Richard caught whoever it was, and said in a whisper, "Any resistance will cost ye your life." "Cratchit it is," said the newcomer. "Ah, how glad I am it is you." "Reether, hush, the old un is below. Ain't I shook a bit? It's a precious good thing as my bones is in the blessed habit o' holding on, one of 'em to the rest and all the rest to one, or else I should have tumbled to bits." "Hush, hush. Oh, he's a good way off. That before cupboard has got a descending floor with ropes and pulleys. So down I went and was rolled out into a room below, and up went the bit of flooring again. I was very nearly startled a little. Nearly, reether, but here I is. I got out and crept upstairs as soon as I could. 'Cos, says I, the governor will wonder what the deuce has become of me. I did, truly, just as I thought. Sir Richard, just listen to me. I've got a fancy for Todd." "A fancy for Todd?" "Yes, and I want to stay here a few hours." "Yes, go and let them as is outside know all's right, and leave me here. I think somehow I shall like to be in a crib alone with Todd for an hour or two. You have got other business to see to, you know, so just leave me here, and mind yer, if I don't get here by 6 in the morning, just consider as he's got the better of me." "No, Cratchit, I cannot." "Can't what?" "Consent to leave you here alone." "Bother. What's the row, and where's the danger, I should like to know? Who's Todd? Who am I?" "Gammon." Sir Richard shook his head, although Cratchit could not very well see him shake it, and after a pause he added, "I don't suppose exactly that there is much danger, Cratchit, but, at all events, I don't like it said that I brought you into this place and then left you here." "Bother. You go and leave me. A likely joke that. No, I tell yer what it is, Sir Richard, you knows me and I knows you, so what does it matter what other folks say? Business is business, I hope, and don't you believe that I'm going to be such a flat as to throw away my life upon such a fellow as Todd. I think I can do some good by staying here. If I can't I'll come away, but I don't think, in either case, that Todd will see me. If he does I shall, perhaps, be forced to nab him, and that, after all, is the worst that can come of it. Well, Cratchit, you shall have your own way." "Good. I will return to the attic as soon as I conveniently can, and let what will happen to you, remember that you are not deserted." "I knows it. Good-bye. Take care of yourself, old friend." "I means it. I should be truly afflicted if anything were to happen to you." "Gammon." Sir Richard left him his own pistols, in addition to the pair which he, Cratchit, always had about him, so that he was certainly well armed, let what would happen to him in the house of Sweeney Todd's, which had now become something more than a mere object of suspicion to the police. Well, they knew Todd's guilt. It was the mode in which he was guilty only that still remained a mystery. The moment Sir Richard Blunt reached the attic again, he held his arm out at full length from the window, and waved to and fro the little lantern as a signal to the officers in the street that he was safe. This done, he would not return to the room he had hired of the bootmaker, but he resolved to wait about 10 minutes longer in case anything should happen in the house below that may sound alarming. After that period of time he resolved upon leaving for an hour or two, but he, of course, would not do so without apprising his officers of Crotchet's situation. During the time that had been passed by Crotchet and Sir Richard Blunt in Sweeney Todd's house, the shoemaker and his wife had had an adventure which created in their minds abundance of surprise. It will be recollected that the shoemaker's wife had decided upon what was to be done regarding the new lodger, namely, that under the pretence that a Mr. Jones was a more satisfactory lodger, he was to be asked to be so good as to quit the attic he had so strangely taken. The arrival of Mr. Crotchet with so different a story from that told by Sir Richard Blunt certainly had the effect of engendering many suspicions in the minds of Sir Richard's new landlord and landlady. "Well, my dear," said the shoemaker, "if you are willing to come upstairs, I will say what you wish to this man, particularly as his pretended friend don't seem to be coming downstairs again." "Very well, my dear, I'll take the kitchen poker and follow you, and while I am behind you, if I think he is a pleasant man, you know, and we had better let him stay, I will give you a slight poke." "Ahem, thank you, yes." Armed with the poker, the lady of the mansion followed her husband up the staircase, and perhaps we may fairly say that curiosity was as strong a feeling with her as any other in the business. To tell the truth, the shoemaker did not half like the job, but what will a man who is under proper control at home not do to keep up the shallow treaty of peace which his compliance produces between him and his better half? Is there anything which a henpecked husband dares say he will not do, when the autocrat of his domestic hearth bids him do it? Up the long dark staircase they went. Our ancestors, as one of their pieces of wisdom, had a knack of making steep dark staircases, and, to tell the truth, there are many modern architects equally ingenious. At length the attic landing was reached. The shoemaker knew the localities of his house better than to make such a mistake as Crotchet had done, so the old lady, with her feet in the pan of water, was saved such another interruption as had already taken place into her peaceful domains. "Now, my dear, knock boldly," said the lady of the mansion. "Knock like a man." "Yes, my love." The shoemaker tapped at the door with about the energy of a fly. The soft appeal produced no effect whatever, and the lady, growing impatient, then poised the poker, and dealt the door a blow which induced her husband to start aside, lest the lodger should open it quickly, and rush out in great wrath. All was profoundly still, however, and then they tried the lock and found it fast. "He's gone to bed," said the shoemaker. "He can't," said the lady, "for there are no sheets on the bed. Besides, they have not both gone to bed. I tell you what it is. There's some mystery in this that I should like to find out. Now, all the keys of all the attics are alike. Just wait here, and I'll borrow Mrs. Chapter 40. Crotchet astonishes Mr. Todd. The key was soon procured, but it will be recollected that Crotchet had fastened the door rather too securely for it to be opened by any such ordinary implement as a key, and so disappointment was the portion of the shoemaker's wife. "Don't you think, my love," said the shoemaker, "that it will be just as well to leave this affair until the morning, before taking any further notice of it? And pray, then, am I to sleep all night if I don't know the rights of it? I should like to know. Perhaps, if you can tell me that, you are a little wiser than I think you. Mary, come up." "Oh, well, you only, then only don't. That's the only favor I ask of you, sir, is to only don't." What extraordinary favor this was! The lady did not condescend to explain any more particulars, but it was quite enough for the husband to understand that a storm was brewing, and to become humble and submissive accordingly. "Well, my dear, I'm sure I only wish you to do just what you like. That's all, my dear, I'm sure." "Very good." After this, she made the most vigorous efforts to get into the attic, and if any one had been there, which at that juncture there was not, they may truly have asked, "Who's that knocking at the door?" Finding that all her efforts were ineffectual, she took to peeping through the keyhole, but nothing was to be seen, and then, for the first time, the idea struck her that there was something supernatural about the business, and in a few moments this notion gained sufficient strength to engender some lively apprehensions. "I tell you what," she said to her husband, if you don't fetch a constable at once, and have the door opened, and see all about, I'm afraid, truly I'm quite sure, I shall be very ill. Oh, dear, it's of no use your standing here and saying oh, dear, like a great stupid as you are, always was and always will be. Go for a constable, at once. A constable. Yes, there's Mr. Otten, the beadle of St. Dunstan's, lives opposite, as you well know, and he's a constable. Run over the way and fetch him, this minute. She began hastily to descend the stairs, and the shoemaker followed her, remonstrating, for the idea of fetching a constable, and making him and his house the talk of the whole neighborhood, was by no means a proposition that met with his approval. The lady was positive, however, and Mr. Otten, the beadle of St. Dunstan's, was brought from over the way, and the case stated to him at length. Convulsions, exclaimed Otten. What can I do? Burst open the door, said the lady. Burst a door open, mum. What is you a thinking on? Why, that's contrary to habeas corpus, mum, and all that sort of thing. Convulsions, mum. You mustn't do it. But I tell you what, now, will be the thing. Here Mr. Otten put his finger to the side of his nose, and looked so cunning, that you would hardly have believed it possible. What? Why, suppose, mum, we ask Mr. Todd, next door, to give us leave to go up into his attic, and get out at the window and look in at yours, mum. That'll do. Run in. Me, cried the shoemaker. Oh, Mr. Todd is a strange man, a very strange man, not at all a neighborly sort of man, and I don't like to go to him. I won't go. That's flat, unless, my love, you particularly wish it. Convulsions, cried the beadle. Ain't I going with you? Ain't I a constabulary force? I should like to know. Convulsions, what is your afeard on? Come on. Lor, what's the meaning o' that? I wonders, now. I should just like to take that before fellow up. You ever heard of a horn being blowed at such a rate, in the middle o' Fleet Street, afore, unless it was somethin' as consarned the parish? Convulsions. It's contrary to habeas corpus, it is. Is me a constabulary force, or is me not? This was the bugle sound which warned Sir Richard Blunt and his friend Crotchet that Sweeney Todd had returned to his shop, and, in fact, while this very conversation was going on at the shoemaker's, Todd had lit the lamp in his shop, and actually opened it for business again, as the evening was by no means very far advanced. Mr. Otten went to the door, and looked about for the audacious bugle player, but he was not to be seen, so he returned to the back parlor of the shoemaker, uttering his favorite expletive of convulsions very frequently. Now, if you is ready, he said, I is, so let's come at once and speak to Mr. Todd. He may be a strange man, but for all that he knows, I dessay, what's proper respect to a beadle. With this strange transformation of his own title upon his lips, Mr. Otten stalked on rather majestically, as he thought, to the street, and from there to Todd's shop door, with the shoemaker following him. The gait of the latter expressed reluctance, and there was a dubious expression upon his face, which was quite amusing to behold. Really, Mr. Otten, he said, don't you think, after all, it would be better to leave this affair alone till the morning? We can easily tell my wife, you know, that Mr. Todd won't let us into his attic. That must satisfy her, for what can she say to it, sir? Said the beadle, when you call in the constabulary force, you must do just what they say, or lastways you acts contrary to habeas corpuses. Come on. Convulsions. Is we to be brought over the street, and then is we to do nothing to go down to prosperity? The beadle uttered these words with such an air of pomposity and importance that the shoemaker, who had a vague idea that habeas corpus was some fearful engine of the law at the command of all its administrators, no longer offered any opposition, but, as meekly as any lamb, followed Mr. Otten into Sweeney Todd's shop. The door yielded to a touch, and Mr. Otten presented his full rubicund countenance to the gaze of Sweeney Todd, who was at the further end of the shop, as though he had just come from the parlor at the back of it, or was just going there. He did not at first see the shoemaker, who was rather obscured by the portly person of the beetle, and Todd's first idea was the most natural one in the world, namely, that the beetle came upon an emergency to be shaved. Giving him an hideous leer, Todd said, "A fine night for a clean shave. Wary, in course, Mr. T.U. is the best judge o' that before, but I does for myself." As he spoke, Mr. Otten rubbed his chin, to intimate that it was to his shaving himself that he alluded just then. "Hair cut," said Todd, giving a snap to the blades of a large pair of scissors that made Mr. Otten jump again, and nearly induced the shoemaker to run out of the shop into the street. "No," said the beetle, and taking off his hat he felt his hair, as though to satisfy himself that it was all there, just as usual. "No." Todd looked as though he would have shaved him with extreme pleasure, and advancing a few steps, he added, "Then what is it that you bring your wieldy carcase here for, you gross lump of stupidity?" "Ha, ha, ha, what? Convulsions. Foe. Can't you take a joke, Mr. Otten? I know you well enough. It's my funny way to call people whom I admire very much all the hard names I can think of." "Is it? Oh, dear, yes. I thought you and all my neighbors knew that well enough. I'm one of the drollest dogs alive. That I am. Won't you sit down?" "Well, Mr. Todd, a joke may be a joke." The beetle looked very sententious at this discovery. "But you have the oddest way of poking your fun at any one that ever I heard of. But I comes to you now as a respectable parishioner, to—" "Oh," said Todd, putting his hands very deliberately into his pockets, "how much?" "It ain't anything to pay. It's a mere trifle. I just want to go up to your front attic and—" "What?" "Your front attic, and get out of the window to look into the front attic next door. We won't trouble you if you will oblige us with a candle. That's all." Todd advanced 2 steps further towards the beetle, and looked peeringly in his face. All the suspicious qualities of his nature rose up in alarm. Every feeling of terror regarding the instability of his position, and the danger by which he was surrounded, rushed upon him. At once he conjectured that danger was approaching him, and that in this covert manner the beetle was intent upon getting into the house, for the purpose of searching it to his detriment. As the footbed sees in each bush an officer, so, in the most trivial circumstances, even the acute intellect of Sweeney Todd saw dangers, and rumors of dangers, which no one but himself could have had the remotest idea of. He glared upon the beetle with positive ferocity, and so much affected was Otten by that lynx-like observation of Sweeney Todd's, that he stepped aside and disclosed that he was not alone. If anything could have confirmed Todd in his suspicions that there was a dead set at him, it was finding that the beetle was not alone. And yet the shoemaker was well known to him. But what will lull such suspicion as Sweeney Todd had in his mind? Once engendered, it was like the jealousy that makes the meat it feeds on. He advanced, step by step, glaring upon the beetle and upon the shoemaker. Reaching up his hand, he suddenly turned the lamp that hung from the ceiling clear round, so that, in lieu of its principal light falling upon him, it fell upon the faces of those who had paid him so unceremonious a visit. "Lawks," said the beetle. "Excuse us, Mr. Todd," said the shoemaker. "I assure you we only meant—" "What?" thundered Todd. Then suddenly softening his voice, he added, "You are very welcome here truly. Pray what do you want?" "Why, sir," said Otten, "you must know that this gentleman has a lodger." "A what?" "A lodger, sir, and so you see that's just the case. You understand that this lodger, lor, Mr. Todd, this is your neighbor the shoemaker, you know, the front attic, you know, and all that sort of thing." After this explanation, "I hope you'll lend us a candle at once, Mr. Todd, and let us up to the attic." Todd shaded his eyes with his hands, and looked yet more earnestly at the beetle. "Why, Mr. Otten," he said, "truly you do want a shave." "A shave?" "Yes, Mr. Otten, I have a good razor here that will go over your chin like a piece of butter. Only take a seat, sir, and if you, neighbor, will go home comfortably to your own fireside, I will send for you when Mr. Otten is shaved." But really, said the beetle, rubbing his chin, I was shaved this morning, and as I do for myself always, you see, why I don't think I require convulsions. Mr. Todd, why do you look at a man so? Remember the habeas corpus. That's what we call the palatinus of the British Constitution, you know. By this time the beetle had satisfied himself that he did not at all require shaving, and turning to the shoemaker, he said, Why don't you be shaved? Well, I don't care if I do, and perhaps in the meantime you, Mr. Otten, will go up to the attic and take a peep into the next one and see if my lodger is up or in bed or what the deuce has become of him. It's a very odd thing, Mr. Todd, that a man should take one's attic and then disappear without coming downstairs. Disappear without coming downstairs, said Todd. Yes, and my wife says. Todd made an impatient gesture. Gentlemen, I will look in my attic myself. The fact is that the flooring is rather out of order, and unless you know exactly where to step, you will be apt to fall through a hole into the second floor. The deuce you are, said Otten. Yes, so I would not advise either of you to make the attempt. Just remain there and I'll go at once. The proposition suited both parties, and Mr. Todd immediately passed through a door at the back of his shop, which he immediately closed behind him again. Instead of going upstairs, however, he slid aside a small opening in the panel of this door, and placed his ear to it. If people say anything impudent, it is the moment they are free from the company that has held them in check, was one of Sweeney Todd's maxims. His first notion that the beetle and the shoemaker had come covertly to search his house had given way a little, and he wanted to convince himself of the innocency or the reverse of their intentions before he put himself to any further trouble. I don't like it, said the shoemaker. Like what? Convulsions. What don't you like? Intruding upon Mr. Todd. What does he care about my lodgers? It ain't as if he let any of his own house, and had a fellow feeling with us. Very good, said the beetle, but you send for me, and you ask me what's best, and I tell yer that habeas corpus, and one thing and another. What I advised was the only thing, that was to get into Mr. Todd's attic and then get on the parapet and into yours. But if so be as there's holes in Mr. Todd's attic, that will alter the affair, you know. Fool, muttered Todd. After all, they only come upon their own twaddling affairs, and I was idiot enough to suspect such muddy-pated rascals. In an instant he was in the shop again. Nobody there, gentlemen. I have looked into the attic, and there's nobody there. Well, I'm very much obliged to you, Mr. Todd, said the shoemaker, for taking so much trouble. I'll go and rather astonish my wife, I think. Convulsions, said the beetle. It's an odd thing, but you know, Mr. Chapter Roman 41. Todd's Vision. When they had left, Todd remained for some minutes in an attitude of thought. Is this an accident, he said, or is it but the elaboration of some deep design to entrap me? What am I to think? Todd was an imaginative man quite. He was just the individual to think, and think over the affair until he made something of it, very different from what it really was, and yet there was some hope that the matter was no more than what it appeared to be, by the character of the parties who had come upon the mission. If anything serious had come to the ears of the authorities, he thought that surely two such people as the beadle of St. Dunstan's and his neighbor the shoemaker would not be employed to unravel such a mystery. He sat down in an armchair and rested his head upon his hand, and while he was in that attitude the door of his shop opened, and a man in the dress of a carter made his appearance. Be this Mr. Todd's? Well, said Todd, what then? Why, then, this be for him like. It's a letter, but larning weren't much the fashion in my young days, so I can't read what's on it. Todd stretched out his hand. An instant examination showed him it bore the Peckham postmark. Thaw, he muttered, from Fog. Thank you, my man, that will do. That will do. What do you wait for? Please to remember the carter, your honor. Todd looked daggers at him, and slowly handed out twopence, which the man took with a very ill grace. What, said Todd, would you charge me more for carrying a letter than King George III does, you extortionate rascal? The carter gave a nod. Get out with you, or buy. Todd snatched up a razor, and the carter was off like a shot, for he really believed, from the awful looks of Todd, that his life was not worth a minute's purchase. Todd opened the letter with great gravity. It contained the following words: Dear Sir, the lad, T.R., I grieve to say, is no more. Let us hope he is gone where the weary are at rest, and where there is neither sin nor sorrow. I am, dear sir, yours faithfully, Jacob B. Fogg. Humph, said Todd. He held the letter in the flame of the lamp until it fell a piece of airy tinder at his feet. Humph, he repeated, and that humph was all that he condescended to say of poor Tobias Ragg, whom the madhouse keeper had thought proper to say was dead, hoping that Todd may never be undeceived, for the barber was a good customer. If, however, Tobias should turn up to the confusion of Fogg and of Todd, what could the latter do for the deceit that had been practiced upon him? Literally nothing. No sooner, said Todd, does one cloud disappear from my route than another takes its place. What can that story mean about the attic next door? It sounds to my ears strange and portentous. What am I to think of it? He rose and paced his shop with rapid strides. At length he paused as though he had come to a determination. The want of a boy is troublesome to me, he said. I must get one, but for the present this must suffice. He wrote upon a small slip of paper the words, "Gone to the temple, will return shortly." He then, by the aid of a wafer, affixed this announcement to the upper part of the half-glass door leading into his shop, locking this door securely on the inside, and starting a couple of bolts into their sockets, he lit a candle and left his shop. With a stealthy, cat-like movement, Todd passed through the room immediately behind his business apartment, and opening another door he made his way towards the staircase. Then he paused a moment. He thought some sound from above had come upon his ears, but he was not quite sure. To suspect, however, was with such a man as Todd to be prepared for the worst, and accordingly he went back to the room behind his shop again, and from a table drawer he took a knife, such as is used by butchers in their trade, and firmly clutching it in his right hand, while he carried the candle in his left, he once more approached the staircase. I do not think, he said, that for 9 years now any mortal footsteps but my own have trod upon these stairs or upon the flooring of the rooms above. Woe be to those who may now attempt to do so. Woe, I say, be to them, for their death is at hand. These words were spoken in a deep, hollow voice that sounded like tones from a sepulchre, as they came from the lips of that man of many crimes. To give Todd his due, he did not seem to shrink from the unknown and dimly appreciated danger that may be upstairs in his house. He was courageous, but it was not the high-souled courage that nerves a man to noble deeds. No, Sweeney Todd's courage was that of hatred to the whole human race, which he considered, with a strange inconsistency, had conspired against him, while he had been the one to place an impassable barrier between himself and the amenities of society. He ascended the stairs with great deliberation. When he reached the landing upon the first floor, he cast his eyes suspiciously about him, shading the light as he did so with his hand, that same hand that held the knife, the shadow of which fell upon the wall in frightful proportions. All is still, he said. Is fancy, after all, only playing me such tricks as she may have played me 20 years ago? I thought I was too old for such freaks of the imagination. Todd did not suspect that there was a second period in his life, when the mental infirmities of his green youth may come back to him, with many superadded horrors accumulated, with a consciousness of guilt. He slowly approached a door, and pushed it open, saying as he did so, "No, no, no. Above all things, I must not be superstitious. If I were so, into what a world of horrors may I not plunge? No, no, I will not people the darkness with horrible fantasies. I will not think that it is possible that men with 20 murders on their heads can revisit this world to drive those who have done them to death with shrieking madness. This world, do I say? There is no other. Bah! Priests may talk, and the weak-brained fools who gape at what they do not understand may believe them. But when man dies, when the electric condition that has imputed to his humanity what is called life flies, he is truly dust to dust. Hall, I have lived as I will die, fearing nothing and believing nothing. As he uttered those words, words which found no real echo in his heart, for at the bottom of it lay a trembling belief in, and a dread of the great God that rules all things, and who is manifest in the meanest seeming thing that crawls upon the earth, he entered one of the rooms upon that floor, and glanced uneasily around him. All was still. There were trunks, clothes upon chairs, and a vast amount of miscellaneous property in this room, but nothing in the shape of a human being. Todd's spirits rose, and he held the long knife more carelessly than he had done. Foe, he said, I do, truly, at times make myself the slave of a disturbed fancy. Foe, I will no more listen to vague sounds, meaning nothing, but wrapping myself up in my consciousness of having nothing to fear. I will pursue my course, hideous though it may be. He turned and took his way towards the landing place of the staircase again. He was now carrying both the light and the knife rather carelessly, and everybody knows that when a candle is held before a person's face, that but little truly can be seen in the hazy vapor that surrounds it. So it was with Todd. He had got about 2 paces from the door, when a strange consciousness of something being in his way came over him. He immediately raised his hand, that hand that still carried the knife, to shade the light, and then, horror! He saw standing upon the landing a figure attired in faded apparel, whose face was dabbled in blood, and the stony eyes which were fixed upon the face of Todd, with so awful an expression that had the barber's heart been made of much more flinty materials than it was, he could not have resisted the terrors of that awful moment. With a shriek that echoed through the house, Todd fell upon the landing. The light rolled from stair to stair until it was finally extinguished, and all was darkness. Sweeney Todd astonished by Crotchet, the Bow Street officer. Sweeney Todd astonished by Crotchet, the Bow Street officer. Good, said Crotchet, for it was he who had enacted the ghost. Good. I'm blessed if I didn't think that before would nail him. These sort o' chaps are always on the lookout for something or another to be frightened at, and you have only to show yourself to put 'em almost out of their 7 senses. It was a capital idea that of me to cut my finger a little, and get some blood to smear over my face. It's astonishing what a long way a little drop will go, to be sure. I dare say it makes me look precious rum. Mr. Crotchet was quite right regarding the appearance which the blood, smeared over his face, gave to him. It made him look perfectly hideous, and any one whose conscience was not, with injustice corrupted, may well have been excused for a cold chill, and perhaps evening a swoon, like Sweeney Todd's, at his appearance. I rather think, added Crotchet, that's a settler, so I'll just take the liberty, old fellow, of lighting your candle again, and then mizzling, for I don't somehow think much good is to be done in this crib just now. By the aid of his phosphorus match, Crotchet soon succeeded in re-illumining the candle, which he found on a mat in the passage, but notwithstanding his opinion that he had seen about as much as there was to see in Todd's house, he, when he had the candle alight, thought he may just as well peep into the parlor immediately behind the shop, before going upstairs again. The door offered no opposition, for Todd had certainly not expected any one downstairs, and Mr. Crotchet found himself in the parlor about as soon as he had formed the wish to be there. This parlor was perfectly crammed with furniture, and all of the bureau kind, that is to say, large shapeless-looking pieces of mahogany, with no end of drawers. Crotchet made an attempt at several before he found one that yielded to his efforts to open it, and that only did so because the hasp into which the lock was shot had given way, and no longer held it close. This drawer was full of watches. Humph, said Crotchet. Todd ought to know the time of day certainly, and no mistake. Ah, these before machines, if they had tongues now, I rather think, could tell a tale or two. Howsomedever, I'll pocket some of 'em. Mr. Crotchet put about a dozen watches in his pocket immediately, and then he began to think that, as he did not wish to take Mr. Todd just then into custody. It would be just as well if he left the house. Besides, the barber had only fell into a swoon through fright, so that his recovery was a matter that could be calculated upon with something like certainty in a short time. It would be a world of pities if he was to find out as the ghost was only me, said Crotchet, so I'll be off before he comes to himself. Extinguishing the light, Crotchet wound his way up the staircase again, but when he got to the landing he stopped, and said, "Bless us, I've not got them canes and swords as Sir Richard wanted me to bring away with me. Well, the watches will answer better than them, for all he wants is to compare 'em with the descriptions of some folks as has been missed by their blessed relations in London, so that's all right. Hilloa!" This latter ejaculation arose from Crotchet having trodden upon Todd. "The deuce!" he added. "I thought I had got clear of him." He paused, and heard Todd utter a deep groan. Mr. Crotchet took this as a signal that he had better be off, and accordingly he ascended the next staircase quickly, and in a very few minutes reached the attic of Todd's house. When there, he quickly made his appearance in the shoemaker's attic, and found that Sir Richard Blunt had left the door of it just upon the latch for him. He was upon the point of passing out of the room, and going downstairs, when he heard a confused sound approaching the attic, and he paused instantly. The sound came nearer and nearer, until Crotchet found that some half-dozen people were upon the landing, and all talking together in anxious whispers. "What the deuce is up now?" he thought. He approached the door and listened. "I tell you what it is, Mr. Otten," said a female voice. "It's now getting on for 10 o'clock, and I positively can't sleep in my bed unless I know something more about this horrid attic." "Well, but, mum, don't speak to me. Here's an attic, and 2 men go into it. Then all at once there's no men in it, and then all at once, one man comes down and walks out as cool as a cucumber, and says nothing at all, and then we know well enough as there was 2 men, and only one. But, mum, don't speak to me, and only one has come down. And here's the other," cried Crotchet, suddenly bouncing out of the attic. The confusion that ensued baffles all description. Chapter Roman 42, The Great Sacrifice. While all these things were going on at Sweeney Todd's in Fleet Street, Mrs. Lovett was not quite idle as regarded her own affairs and feelings. That lady's, what shall we say, certainly not affections, for she had none, passions is a better word, were inconceivably shocked by the discovery she had made of the perfidy of her flaunting and moustachioed lover. It will be perceived by this little affair of Mrs. Lovett's how strong-minded women have their little weaknesses. The hour of the appointment, which she Mrs. Lovett had made with her military-looking beau, came round, and there she sat, looking rather disconsolate. "Am I never to succeed," she muttered to herself, "in finding one with whom I can make my escape from the sea of horrors that surrounds me? Am I, notwithstanding I have so fully accomplished all I wished to accomplish? She shuddered and paused. Well, well, the time will come, I must go alone. Let Todd go alone, and let me go alone. Why should he wish to trammel my actions? He cannot surely think, for a moment, that with him I will consent to pass the remainder of my life." The scornful curl of the lip and the indignant toss of the head, which accompanied these words, would have been quite sufficient to convince Todd, had he seen them, of the hopelessness of any such notion. "No," she added, after a pause, "I shall be alone in the world, or, if I make ties, they shall be made in another country. There it is possible I may be, oh, no, no, not happy, but I may be powerful, and have cringing slaves about me, who, finding that I am rich, will tell me that I am beautiful, and I shall be able to drink deeply of the intoxicating cup of pleasure, in some land where prudery, or what is called propriety, has not set up its banner as it has in this land of outward virtue. As for Todd, I will try to be assured that he is a corpse before I breathe freely, and if I fail in that, I will hope that we shall be thousands of leagues asunder." A shadow passed the window. Mrs. Lovett started to her feet. "Ah, who comes?" "It is he, No, God. It is Todd. For a moment she pressed her hands upon her face, as though she would squeeze out the traces of passion from the muscles, and then her old set smile came back again. Todd entered the shop. For a few moments they looked at each other in silence, and then Todd said, "Alone?" "Quite," she replied. He gave one of his peculiar laughs, and then glided into the parlor behind the shop. Mrs. Lovett followed him. "News," he said. "None. Hem. The time is coming. The time to leave off this. Yes, the time to quit business, Mrs. Lovett. All goes well, swimmingly. Ha, ha." She shuddered as she said, "Do not laugh." "Let those laugh who win," replied Todd. "How old are you, Sarah?" "Old? Yes, or to shape the question perhaps more to a woman's liking, how young are you? Have you yet many years before you in which to enjoy the fruits of our labors? Have you the iron frame which will enable you to say, 'I shall revel for years in the soft enjoyments of luxury stolen from a world I hate'? Tell me." Mrs. Lovett fell into a musing attitude, and Todd thought she was reflecting upon her age, but at length she said, "I sometimes think I would give half of what is mine if I could forget how I became possessed of the whole." "Truly, yes, Todd. Has no such feeling ever crossed you?" "Never. I am implacable. Fate made me a barber, but nature made me something else. In the formation of man there is a something that gives weakness to his resolves, and makes him pause upon the verge of enterprise with a shrinking horror. That is what the world calls conscience. It has no hold of me. I have but one feeling towards the human race, and that is hatred. I saw that while they pretended to bow down to God, they had in reality set up another idol in their heart of hearts. Gold, gold. Tell me, how many men there are in this great city who do not worship gold far more sincerely and heartily than they worship heaven? Few, few, few. None. I say none. No, the future is a dream, an ignis fatuus, a vapor. The present we can grasp. Ha! What is our wealth, Todd? Hundreds of thousands. He shaded his eyes with his hands and peered from the parlor into the shop. Who is that keeps dodging past the window each moment and peeping in at every convenient open space in the glass that he can find? Mrs. Lovett looked, and then, after an effort, she said, "Todd, I was going to speak to you of that man. Ah, listen, I suspect him. For some days past he has haunted the shop, and makes endeavors to become acquainted with me. I did not think it sound policy wholly to shun him, but gave him such encouragement as may supply me with opportunities of judging if he were a spy or not. Humph! I think him dangerous." Todd's eyes glistened like burning coals. "Should he come into your shop to be shaved, Todd?" "Ha! Ha!" The horrible laugh rang through the place, and Mrs. Lovett's lover, with the mustache, sprung to the other side of Bell Yard, for the unearthly sound evening reached his ears as he was peeping through the window to catch a glimpse of the charming widow. "You understand me, Todd?" "Perfectly, perfectly. I shall know him again." "Ah, my dear Mrs. Lovett, how dangerous it is to be safe in this world evening. Our virtue cannot escape detraction, but we will live in hopes of better times. You and I will show the world yet what wealth is." "Yes, yes." Todd crept close to her, and was about to place his arm round her waist, but she started from him, exclaiming, "No, no, Todd, 1,000 times no. Have we not before quarreled upon this point? Do not approach me, or our compact, infernal as it is at an end. I have sold my soul to you, but I have not bartered myself." The expression of Todd's countenance at this juncture was that of an incarnate fiend. He glared at Mrs. Lovett as though with a horrible fascination of his ugliness he would overcome her, and then slowly rising, he said, "Her soul, ha! She has sold her soul to me, ha! I will call to tomorrow." He left the shop, and as he passed the gent who, by force of his mustache, hoped to win the affections of Mrs. Lovett, he gave him such a look that he terrified him, and the gent found himself in the shop before he was aware. Bless me, what a horrid-looking fellow! I swear by my courage and honor I never saw such a face. "Ah, my charmer, Who was that left your charming presence just now? Someone who came for a pie. 'Pon honor, he's enough to poison all the pies. Oh, you beauty, yo, ooh, ooh, ooh. The gallant's mouth was so full of a veal pie that he had stuffed into it that for some few moments he could not produce an intelligible sound. When he had recovered, he walked into the parlor and sat down, saying, "Now, Mrs. Lovett, here am I, 'pon honor, your humble servant, and stop my breath if I'd say as much to the commander-in-chief. When's the happy day to be? Do you really love me? Do I love you? Do I love fighting? Do I love honor, glory? Do I love eating and drinking? Do I love myself? Ah, Major Bounce, you military men are so gallant. 'Pon honor we are. General Cavendish used to say to me, 'Bounce,' says he, 'if you don't make your fortune by war, which you ought to do, Bounce, 'pon honor, you will make it by love.' 'General,' says I, now I was always ready for a smart answer, Mrs. Lovett, so General, says I, the same to you? Very smart. Yes, wasn't it? 'Pon honor it was. And 'pon soul you looks more and more charming every day that I see you. Oh, you flatter. No, no, bar flattering, bar flattering. His Majesty has often said, talk of flattery. Oh dear, Bounce is the man for me. He is right down, straight up off-handed. And no sort of mistake, on. Another pie converted the oratory of the Major into something between a grunt and a sigh. But, Major, I'm afraid that you will regret marrying me. If I convert all I have into money, the Major pricked up his ears. I could not make of it more than £50,000. The Major's eyes opened to the size of pint saucers as he said, 50, fifth. Say it again, £50,000. The Major rose and embraced Mrs. Lovett. Tears actually came into his eyes, and gulping down the pie, he cried, "You have 50,000 charms. Only let me be your slave, your dog, damn your dog, Mrs. Lovett, and I shall consider myself the luckiest dog in the world, but not for the money, not for the money. No, as the Marquis of Cleveland once said, if you want a thoroughly disinterested man, go to Bounce. Well, Major, since we understand each other so well, there are two little things that I must name as my conditions. Name M. Do you want me to bring you the King's eye-tooth, or Her Majesty's wig and snuff-box? Only say the word. One is that I will leave England. I have a private reason for so doing. Damn, so have I. That is a hem. If you have a reason, that is a reason to me, you know. Exactly. In some other capital of Europe we may spend our money and enjoy all the delights of existence. Do you speak French? Ahem. Oh, of course. I never tried particularly, but as Lord North said to the Duke of Bridgewater, Bounce is the man if you want anything done of an out-of-the-way character. Very well, then, my next condition is that you shave off your mustache. What? Shave off your mustache? I have the greatest possible aversion to mustache. Therefore I make that a positive condition without which I shall say no more to you. My charmer, do you think I hesitate? If you were to say to me, Bounce, off with your head, in a moment it would roll at your feet. Go, then, to Mr. Todd's, the barber, in Fleet Street, and have them taken off at once, and then come back to me, for I declare I won't speak another word to you while you have them on. But, dear creature, Mrs. Lovett shook her head. 'Pon honor. She shook her head again. I'll go at once then, 'pon soul, and have 'em taken off. I'll be back in a jiffy, Mrs. Lovett. Oh, you duck, I adore you. Confound the cash. It's you I knuckle under to. Man dotes on Venus, and I love it. Bye, I'll get it done and soon be back. 50,000, 55th. Oh, Lord Wyflukes, your fortune is made at last. These last words did not reach the ear of Mrs. Lovett. That lady threw herself into a chair, where the gallant Major had left her. Another, she said. Another. Why did he try to deceive me? The fool, to pitch upon me, of all persons, to make his victim. I must have found him out, and poisoned him. If I had married him, it is better that Todd should take vengeance for me, and then the time shall come when he shall fall. Yes, so soon as I can, by cajolery or scheming, get sufficient of the plunder into my own hands. Todd's hours are numbered. After this, Mrs. Lovett fell into a train of musing, and her face assumed an expression so different from that with which she was wont to welcome her customers in the shop, that not one of them would have known her. But we must look at Todd. It was upon his return home from several calls, the last of which had been this recent visit to Mrs. Lovett, that he had heard the noise in his house, which had terminated in his going upstairs, and being so terrified by Crotchet, it will be recollected that he fell insensible upon the staircase, and that Crotchet took that opportunity of making good his retreat. How long he lay there, he, Todd, had no means of knowing, for all was profound darkness upon the staircase, but his first sensation consisted of a tingling in his feet and hands, similar to the sensation which is properly called your limbs going to sleep. Then a knocking noise came upon his sense of hearing. "What's that? Where am I?" he cried. "No, no, don't hang me. Where's Mrs. Lovett? Hang her. She is guilty. Knock, knock, knock. Hush, hush. What is it? Who wants me? Good God, no, no. There is no good God for me. Knock, knock, knock." Chapter Roman 43. An old acquaintance. Todd scrambled to his feet. He held his head in his hand. What does it all mean? What does it all mean? Knock, knock, knock. Todd's senses were slowly returning to him. He began to recollect events, at first confusedly, and then the proper order of their occurrence, how he had come home, and then heard a noise, and gone upstairs and seen. What? There he paused in his catalogue of events. What had he seen? Knock, knock, knock. Curses, he muttered. Who can that be hammering with such devilish perseverance at my door? By all that's horrible, they shall pay dearly for thus disturbing me. Who can it be? Not any one to arrest me. No, no, they would not knock so long. An enforced entrance long before this would have brought them to me. What did I see? What did I see? What did I see? Dare I give it a name? He slowly descended the stairs, and reaching the shop, he peeped through a place in the door which he had made for such a purpose. There stood the hero of the moustachios knocking away with all his might to get the behests of Mrs. Lovett obeyed. Todd suddenly flung open the door, and in fell Major Bounce, alias Flukes. "The devil! What do you want?" "'Pon honor, damn it! Is this the way to treat a military man?" Todd turned to the side of the shop and hastily put on a wig. By an adroit movement of his fingers, he pulled his cravat sufficiently out from his neck to be able to bury his chin in it, and when he turned to the mock major, the latter had no suspicion that he looked upon the same person who had so alarmed him by a look, in Bell Yard. "Shaved or dressed, sir?" said Todd. "Confound you! Why did you open the door so quick?" "Thought you knocked, sir." "I did, but stop my breath, if you haven't given me an ugly fall. But no matter. None but the brave deserve the fair. You perceive I am a military man." "Oh, yes, sir, and a body may see that by your martial air." "Ahem, you are right. Well then, Mr. Barber, I want my mustache shaved off. It's a fancy of a lady, one of the most charming of her sex, one with a 50,000-pound charm. 'Pon my valor, she has. Ah, I am a lucky dog, 38, handsome as Apollo, and beloved by the fairest of the fair. Life is a jolly thing, life is a jolly thing, while I drink deep and go frolicking, fair maids, wives, and widows, fair maids, wives, and widows. Dote on the youth that goes frolicking. Ha, ha, ha. Life's a bumper. Upon my valor, Mr. Barber, I feel like a young colt, that I do." "Really, sir, you don't say so?" "Oh, yes, yes. Ha, ha. All's right, all's right. Now, mister, what's your name?" "Off with the mustache. It's only in the cause of the fair that I would condescend to part with them. That's a fact. But when a lady's in the case, upon my valor, you are an ugly fellow. You don't say so, replied Todd as he made a most hideous contortion. Most people think me so fascinating that they stay with me. Ha, ha, a good joke. Major Bounce, we may as well still call the poor wretch Major Bounce, placed his hat upon a chair and his sword upon the top of it. Pray, sir, be seated, said Todd. Ah, damn, is this seat a fixture? Yes, sir, it's in the proper light, you see, sir. Oh, very well, pluff, pluff, puff, puff. Confound you, what have you filled my mouth with soapsuds for? Quite an accident, sir, quite an accident, for which I humbly beg your pardon, I assure you, sir. If you keep your mouth shut, and your eyes open, you will get on amazingly. Have you seen the paper today, sir? No, sorry for that, sir. A very odd case, sir. A little on one side, a most remarkable case, I may say. A gentleman, sir, went into a barber's shop and, puff, sloosh, puff. Am I to be poisoned by your soapsuds? Upon my valor, I shall have to make an example of you to all barbers. You opened your mouth at the wrong time, sir. The wrong devil. Don't keep me here all night. Certainly not, sir. But as I was saying about this curious case in the paper, a military gentleman went into a barber's shop to be shaved. Well, the devil, pluff, pluff. Good God, am I to endure all this? Certainly not, sir. I'll show you the paper itself. You must know, sir, that the paragraph is headed Mysterious Disappearance of a Gentleman. Damn it, what do I care about it? Get on with the shaving. Certainly, sir. Todd gave a horrible scrape to Major Bounce's face with a blunt razor. Quite easy, sir. Easy. Good gracious, do you want to skin me? Oh, dear no, sir. What an idea. To skin a military gentleman. Certainly not, sir. I see you require one of my best keen razors, one of the Magnum Bonhams. Ha, ha. Eh? What was that? Only me giving a slight smile, sir. The deuce it was. Don't do it again, then, that's all, and get your keen razor at once and make an end of the business. I will make an end of the business. Sit still, sir. I'll be back in a moment. Todd went into the parlor. GBP 50, muttered Major Bounce. I am a happy fellow. At last, after so many ups and downs, I light upon my feet. A charming widow, and she wishes to leave England. How lucky! I wish the very same thing. GBP 50 charms. Good God, what's that? Said a man who was passing Todd's window in Fleet Street. What a horrid shriek. Did you hear it, mum? Oh dear, yes, said a woman. I'm all of a tremble. It came from the barber's shop here. Let's go in and ask if anything is the matter. The man and woman crossed Todd's threshold and opened the shop door. A glance showed them that a man's face was at a small opening of the parlor door. The shaving chair was empty. What's the matter? Said the man. With whom? Said Todd. Well, I don't know, but I thought somebody cried out. Todd crept along the floor until he came close to the man, and then he said, My friend, have you anything to do? Yes, thank God. Then, go and do it, and the next time you hear me cry out with the stomachache, ask yourself if it is your business to come in and ask me any questions about it. As for you, ma'am, unless you want to be shaved, I don't know, for the life of me, what you do here. Well, we only thought. Todd gave a hideous howl, which so terrified both the intruders that they left the shop in a moment. His countenance then assumed that awful satanic expression which it sometimes bore, and he stood for the space of about 5 minutes in deep thought. Starting then suddenly, he took up the sword and hat of Major Bounce, and was in the act of putting both into a cupboard, when a smothered cry met his ears. Todd unsheathed the sword, and after fastening his shop door, he went into the parlor. He was absent about 10 minutes, and when he returned he had not the sword, but he hastily washed his hands. Done, he said. Scratch, 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 came something at his door, and Todd bent forward in an attitude of listening. Scratch, scratch, scratch. His face turned ghastly pale, and his knees knocked together as he whispered to himself, "What is that? What is that?" Todd was getting superstitious. Since his adventure with Mr. Crotchet, his nerves had been out of order, notwithstanding the exertions he had made to control himself and to convince his judgment that it was all a matter of imagination. Yet now, somehow or another, although there was no visible connection between the two things, he could not help mentally connecting this scratching at the door with a vision on the staircase. It is strange how the fancy will play such tricks, but it is no less strange than true that she does so, yoking together matters most dissimilar, and leading the judgment into strange disorder. Scratch, scratch, scratch. What is it? Gasped Todd. But time works wonders, and after the first shock to his nerves, the barber began to think that someone must be playing him a trick, and, for all he knew, it may be the very man whom he had snubbed so for interfering with him, or it may be some boy. The boys would at times tease Sweeney Todd. This supposition gathered strength each moment. "It is a trick," he said. "I will be revenged." He took a thick stick from a corner and stealthily approached the door. The odd scratching noise continued, and he again paused for a few moments to listen to it. A boy, he growled. "It is one of the infernal boys." Opening the door a little way with great quickness, Todd aimed a blow through the opening. There was a short, angry bark, and his old enemy, the dog that had belonged to the mariner, thrust in his head and glared at Todd. "Help! Help! Murder!" cried Todd. The dog again. He made a vain effort to shut the door, but Hector was too strong for him, and, as he had got his head in, he seemed to be determined to force in his whole body, which he fully succeeded in doing. Todd dropped the stick and rushed into the back parlor for safety, from where, through a small square of glass near the top of the door, he glared at the proceedings of his four-footed foe. The dog went direct to the cupboard from which he had taken his master's hat, and, opening the door, he dragged out an assemblage of miscellaneous property, as though he hoped to find among it some other vestige of the dear master he had lost. When, however, after tossing the things about, he found that they were all strange to him, he gave a melancholy howl. Hector then appeared to be considering what he should do next, and, after a few moments' consideration, he made a general survey of the shop, and finally ended by leaping into the shaving chair, where he sat and commenced such a series of melancholy howls that Todd was nearly driven out of his mind at the conviction that the whole street must be soon in a state of alarm. Oh, how glad he would have been to have shot Hector, but then, although he had pistols in the parlor, he may miss him, and send the bullet into Fleet Street through his own window, and perhaps hit somebody, and that would be a trouble. The report, too, would bring a crowd round his shop, and the old story of him and the accusing dog, for had not that dog accused him, would be brought up again. But yet something must be done. "Am I to be a prisoner here?" said Todd, while that infernal dog sits in the shaving chair, howling. Now and then, for the space of about half a minute, the dog would be quiet, but then the prolonged howl that he would give plainly showed that he had only been gathering breath to give it. Todd got desperate. "I must and will shoot him," he said. Going to a sideboard, he opened a drawer and took from it a large double-barreled pistol. He looked carefully at the priming, and satisfying himself that all was right, he crept again to the parlor door. "I must and will shoot him at any risk," he said. "This infernal dog will be else the bane and torment of my life. I thought I had been successful in poisoning the brute as he suddenly disappeared from my door, but he has been preserved by some sort of miracle on purpose to torment me." Howl went the dog again. Sweeney Todd took a capital aim with the pistol. To be sure, his nerves were not quite in such good order as they sometimes were, but then the distance was so short that how could he miss such an object as a Newfoundland dog? I have him," he muttered. "Ha, ha, I have him." He pulled the trigger of the pistol, snap went the lock, and the powder in the pan flashed up in Todd's face, but that was all. Before he could utter evening an oath, the shop door was opened, and a man's voice cried, "Hasn't nobody seen nothing of never a great dog nowheres? Oh, there you is, my tulip. Come to your father, you rogue you." Chapter Roman 44 Todd and the Silversmith. Sweeney Todd revisited by the dog of one of his victims. Sweeney Todd revisited by the dog of one of his victims. Hector whined a kind of recognition of this man, but he did not move from the chair in Todd's shop upon which he had seated himself. Come, old fellow, said the man, you don't want to be shaved, do you? Hector gave a short bark, but he wagged his tail as much as to intimate, mind, I am not at all angry with you. And truly it was quite evident, from the manner of the dog to this man, that there was a good understanding between them. Come now, Pisson, said the man, don't be making a fool of yourself here any more. You ain't on friendly terms here, my tulip. Hilloa, cried Todd. The man gave a start, and Hector uttered an angry growl. Hilloa, who are you? Why, I'm the ostler at the Bullfinch, opposite. Is that your dog? Why, in a manner o' speaking, for want of a better master, he's got me. The ostler, by dint of shading his eyes with his hands, and looking very intently, at last saw Todd, and then he added, Oh, it's you, master, is it? Take away that animal directly, cried Todd. Take him away. I hate dogs. Curses on both you and him. How came he here? Ah, Pisson, Pisson, why did you come here, you good-for-nothing feller you? You ought to have knowed better. Didn't I always say to you, leastways, since I've had you, didn't I say to you, don't you go over the way, for that before Barber is your natural enemy, Pisson, and yet here yer is. As he spoke, the ostler embraced Hector, who was not at all backward in returning the caress, although in the amid of it he turned his head in the direction of the back parlor, and gave a furious bark at Todd. There is some mystery at the bottom of all this, muttered Todd, and then raising his voice, he added, How did you come by the dog? Why, I'll tell you, master. For a matter of 2 days, you know, he stuck at your door with a hat as belonged. Well, well, yes, his master, folks said, was murdered. Ha, ha, eh? Oh, Lord, what was that? Only me. I laughed at the idea of anybody being murdered in Fleet Street, that was all. Though, bah, it don't seem very likely. Well, as I was a-saying, arter you had finished off his master, I begs your pardon. Only, you see, the dog would have it that you had, and so folks say so as natural as possible, but howsomedever, I comed by and seed this here dog in the agonies o' conwulsions all along o' Pisson. Now where I come from, the old man, that's my father as was had lots o' dogs, and consequently I knowed somethink about them before cretters. So I takes up this one and carries him on my back over the way to the stables, and there I cures him and makes a pet of him, and I called him Pisson, 'cause, you see, as he had been pissoned. Lor, sir, you should only have seed him, when he was a-getting a little better, how he used to look at me and try to say, Bill, don't I love you neither. It's affection, that it is, blow me. Todd gave an angry snarl of derision. I tell you what it is, my man, he said, if you will hang that dog, I will give you a guinea. Hang Pisson? No, old un, I'd much rather hang you for half that before money. Come along, my daffodowndilly, don't you stay here any more. Why, I do believe it was you as pissoned him, you old bloke. The ostler seized Hector, or Pisson, as he had fresh christened him, round the neck, and fairly dragged him away out of the shop. To be sure, if Hector had resisted, the ostler, with all the power of resistance he possessed, it would truly have been no easy matter to remove him, but it was wonderful to see how nicely the grateful creature graduated his struggles, so that they fell short of doing the smallest hurt to his preserver, and yet showed how much he wished to remain as a terror and a reproach to Sweeney Todd. When they were both fairly gone, Todd emerged from his parlor again, and the horrible oaths and imprecations he uttered will not bear transcription. With eager haste he again bundled into the cupboard all the things that the dog had dragged out of it, and then stamping his foot he said, Am I, after defeating the vigilance of heaven only knows who, and for so long preserving myself from almost suspicion, to live in dread of a dog? Am I to be tormented with the thought that that fiend of an animal is opposite to me, and ready at any moment to fly over here and chase me out of my own shop? Confound it! I cannot and will not put up with such a state of things. Oh, if I could but get one fair blow at him. Only one fair blow. As he spoke, he took up a hammer that was in a corner of the shop and made a swinging movement with it through the air. Someone at that moment opened the shop door and narrowly escaped a blow upon the head that would have finished their mortal career. Hilloa, are you mad? Mad, said Todd. Yes, do you knock folks' brains out when they come to be shaved? Mine's a sedentary employment, said Todd, and when I am alone, I like exercise to open my chest. That's all. Ain't it rather late to be shaved? I was just about to shut up. Why, it is rather late, Mr. Todd. But the fact is, I am going to York by the early coach from the Bullfinch Inn opposite, and I want a shave before I get upon my journey, as I shan't have an opportunity, you see, again, for some time. Very well, sir. Come in, Charlie. Todd started. What's that? He said. He felt afraid that it was the dog again, under some new name. Truly, conscience was beginning to make a coward of Sweeney Todd, although he denied to himself the possession of such an article. Charlie came in the shape of a little boy of about 8 years of age. Now you sit down and don't do any mischief, said the father, while I get Mr. Todd to shave me. I am a late customer truly. You see, the coach goes in 2 hours, and as I have got to call the last thing upon Alderman Stanton's, I thought I would be shaved first, and my little lad here would come with me. Oh, certainly, sir, said Todd. I believe I have the pleasure of speaking to Mr. Brown, the silversmith. Yes, yes. The alderman gave me some jewels, worth about £3,000, to reset, and though they are not done, I really don't like to have them at home while I take such a journey, so I want to lodge them with him again until I come back. Todd lathered away at Mr. Brown's chin, as he said with an air of innocence, Can you carry so many jewels about with you, sir? So many? Aye, 10 times as many. Why, they are all in a little narrow case that would not hold a pair of razors. Truly, Todd began the shaving. And so this is your little boy? A sharp lad, no doubt. Tolerable. The whiskers as they are, sir. Though, yes, yes. I suppose you never trust him out alone in the streets. Oh, yes, often. Is it possible? Well, now, I should hardly have thought it. What a sweet child he looks, and such a nice complexion, too. It's quite a pleasure to see him. I was considered myself a very fine child a good while ago. Todd took care to lift the razor judiciously so as to give Mr. Brown opportunities of replying, and the silversmith said, Oh, yes, he's a nice little fellow. He's got his mother's complexion, and he shan't lose it, said Todd, if there's any virtue in perlometrical Savonia. In what? Oh, that's the name I give to a soap that preserves the complexion in all its purity. I have only a small parcel of it, so I don't sell it, but I give it away now and then to my lady customers. Excuse me for one moment. Oh, certainly. Todd opened a glass case and took out 2 pieces of soap of a yellowish tint. There, Charlie, he said as he handed them to the little fellow. There's a piece for you and a piece for Mamma. Really, you are very kind, Mr. Todd, said Brown. Oh, don't mention it. Run home at once, Charlie, with them, and by the time you get back your father will be finished. Run along. I won't, said Charlie. Ah, come, come, said his father. I won't go, and I don't like soap. And why don't you like soap, my little man? Said Todd as he recommenced operations upon the silversmith's face. Because I don't like to be washed at all. It scrubs so, and I don't like you, either. You are so dreadfully ugly, that I don't. Todd smiled blandly. Now, Charlie, said his father, I am very angry with you. You are a very bad boy truly. Why don't you do as Mr. Todd tells you? Because I won't. Bless him, said Todd, bless his heart. But don't you think, Mr. B. Here Todd's voice sank to a whisper. Don't you think that it's rather injudicious to encourage this obstinacy, if one may call it such, thus early in life? It may, grow upon the dear little fellow. You are right, Mr. Todd, and I know that he is spoiled, but I have a more than ordinary affection for him, since, under most critical circumstances, once I saved his life. From that time, I confess that I have been weak enough to allow him too much of his own way. Thank you, Mr. Todd. A very clean, comfortable shave truly. Mr. Brown rose from his chair and approached the little boy. Charlie, my dear, he said, you will save Papa's life some day, won't you? Yes, said Charlie. The father kissed him, as he added, how affected I feel tonight. I suppose it's the thought of the long journey I am going. No doubt, said Todd. Good night, Mr. Todd. Come along, Charlie. Won't you give me a kiss, you darling, before you go? Said Todd. No, ugly, I won't. Oh, Charlie, Charlie, your behavior to Mr. Todd is really anything but right. You are a very bad boy tonight. Come along. Away they went, and Todd stood stropping the lately used razor upon his hand as he glared upon them, and muttered, jewels worth 3,000 pounds. And so you saved the child's life, did you? By all that's devilish, he has returned the obligation. He went to the door and looked after the retreating figures of the silversmith and his child. He saw with what tender care the father lifted the little one over the roadway, and again he muttered, 3,000 pounds gone, gone, when it was almost within my grasp. All this is new. I used not to be the sport of such accidents and adverse circumstances. Time was when by the seeming irresistible force of my will I could bend circumstances to my purposes, but now I am the sport of dogs and children. What is the meaning of it all? Is my ancient cunning deserting me? Is my brain no longer active and full of daring? He crept back into his shop again. The hour was now getting late, and after sitting for some time in silent musing he rose, and without a word, commenced closing his establishment for the night. I must have another boy, he said, as he put up the last shutter and secured it in its place. I must have another boy. This state of things will not do. I must certainly have another boy. Tobias Ragg would have suited me very well if he had not been what shall I call it, confoundedly imaginative. But he is dead, that is a comfort. He is dead, and I must have another boy. Then went Sweeney Todd's shop door. The beautiful moon climbed over the housetops in Old Fleet Street. The clock of St. Dunstan's struck the hour of 11. The streets began to be thin of pedestrians, and the din of carriages had almost entirely ceased. London then, although it was so not long ago, presented a very different aspect at the hour of 11 to what it does now. The old hackney coaches had not been ousted from the streets by the cabs and the omnibuses, and the bustle of the city was truly but a faint echo then of what it is now. Chapter Roman 45. Johanna's new situation. Johanna, attend to me, said Mrs. Oakley, upon the morning after these events. Well, mother, your father is an idiot. Mother, I dissent from the opinion, and if it were true, it comes with the worst possible grace from you, but I am sick at heart. I pray you to spare me reproaches or angry words, mother. Haty-taty, one must not speak next, I suppose. Some people fancy that other people know nothing, but there is such a thing as overhearing what some people say to other people. Johanna had not the most remote notion of what her mother meant, but Mrs. Oakley's tongue was like many pieces of machinery, that when once set in motion are not without considerable trouble brought to a standstill again. So on she went. Of course, I now know quite well why the godly man who would have made you a chosen vessel was refused. It was all owing to that scamp, Mark Ingestry. Mother, Mary, come up. You need not look at me in such a way. We don't all of us see with the same eyes. A scamp he is, and a scamp he will be. Mother, he whom you so name is with his God. Mention him no more. The wild ocean rolls over his body, his soul is in heaven. Speak not irreverently of one whose sole crime was that he loved me. Oh, mother, you, Johanna could say no more. She burst into tears. Well, said Mrs. Oakley, if he is dead, pray what hinders you from listening to the chosen vessel, I should like to know. Do not, oh do not, mother, say any more to me. I cannot, dare not trust myself to speak to you upon such a subject. What is this? Said Mr. Oakley, stepping into the room. Johanna in tears. What has happened? Mr. Oakley defends Johanna from the violence of her mother. Mr. Oakley defends Johanna from the violence of her mother. Father, dear father. And Mr. Oh, cried Mrs. Oakley, what business is it of yours, I should like to know? Be so good, sir, as to attend to your spectacles and such like rubbish, and not to interfere with my daughter. Dear me, ain't she my daughter likewise? Oh yes, Mr. Oh, go on with your base, vile, wretched, contemptible, unmanly insinuations. Do go on, pray, I like it. Oh, you odious wretch, you spectacle-making monster, do not, cried Johanna, who saw the heightened color of her father's cheek. Oh, do not let me be the unhappy cause of any quarreling. Father, father, hush, my dear, don't you say another word. Cousin Ben is coming to take a little bit of lunch with us today. I know it, cried Mrs. Oakley, clapping her hands together with a vengeance that made Oakley jump again. I know it. Oh, you wretch, you couldn't have put on such airs if your bully had not been coming. I thought the last time he came here was enough for him. Aye, and for you too, mister. Though it was nearly too much, said the spectacle maker, shaking his head. Tow row, 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 cried Big Ben, popping his head into the parlor. What do you all bring it in now? Wilful murder with the chill off, or what? Ah, Mother Oakley, what's the price of vinegar now? Wholesale, pluck does it. Here you is. Ha, ha. Ain't we a united family? Couldn't stay away from you. Mother Oakley, no more nor I could from that before laughing hyena we has in the tower. You wretch, sit down, Ben, said Mr. Oakley. I am glad to see you, and I am quite sure Johanna is. Oh, yes, yes, that's it, said Ben. It's on Johanna's account I came. Now, little one, just tell me. Johanna had just time to place her finger upon her lips, unobserved by any one, and shake her head at Ben. Ah, how are you, eh? He said, turning the conversation. Come, Mother O, stir your old stumps and be the live, will you? I have come to lunch with your lord and master, so bustle, bustle. Mrs. Oakley rose, and placing her hands upon her hips, she looked at Ben as she said, You great, horrid, man-mountain of a wretch, I only wonder you ain't afraid, after the proper punishment you had on the occasion of your last visit, to show your horrid face here again? You deludes to the Fizz-King, I suppose, mum. Lor bless you, it did us no end of good, but howsomedever, we provide agin wice and animals when we knows on it aforehand, do you see? Oh, there you is. A boy howled out from the shop. Did a gentleman order 2 gallons of half and half here, please? All's right, said Ben. Now, Mother O, the only thing I'll trouble you for is a knife and fork. As for the rest of the combustibles, here they is. Ben took from one capacious pocket a huge parcel, containing about 6 pounds of boiled beef, and from the other he took as much ham. Hold hard, he cried to the boy who brought the beer. Take this half-crown, my lad, and get 3 quartern loaves. But, Ben, said old Mr. Oakley, I really had no intention, when I asked you to come to lunch this morning, of making you provide it yourself. We have, or we ought to have, plenty of everything in the house. Old birds, said Ben, isn't to be caught twice. A fellow, arter he has burnt his fingers, is afeard o' playing with the fire. No, Mrs. O, you gave us a benefit last time, and I ain't going to try my luck again. All's right, pitch into the grub. How is the chosen vessel, Mother O? All right, eh? Mrs. Oakley waited until Ben had made an immense sandwich of ham and beef, and then in an instant, before he was aware of what she was about, she caught it up and slapped it in his face with a vengeance that was quite staggering. Easy does it, said Ben. Take that, you great, fat elephant. Go it. Mrs. Oakley bounced out of the room. Johanna looked her sorrow, and Mr. Oakley rose from his chair, but Ben made him sit down again, saying, Easy does it, easy does it. Never mind her, Cousin Oakley. She must have her way sometimes. Let her kick and be off. There's no harm done, not a bit. Lord bless you, I'm used to all sorts of cantankerous animals. Mr. Oakley shook his head. Forget it, father, said Johanna. I only wish, my dear, I could forget many things, and yet there are so many others that I want to remember, mixed up with them, that I don't know how I should manage to separate them one from the other. You couldn't do it, said Ben. Here's luck in a bag, and shake it out as you want it. This sentiment was uttered while Ben's head was deep in the recesses of the 2-gallon can of beer, so that it had a peculiar solemn and sonorous effect with it. After drinking about a quart, Ben withdrew the can and drew a long breath. Has he brought yours? He said. What? Who? Why, the other 2 gallons for you and Johanna. Good gracious, Ben, you don't mean that. Don't I, though? Oh, here he is. All's right. Now, my lad, get the little pint jug with the silver top to it, and if we don't mull a drop, I'm a sinner. Now, you'll see if Mrs. Oh, don't come round quite handsome. Ben, by the aid of some sugar, succeeded in making a very palatable drink, and just as the steam began to salute the nostrils of old Oakley and himself, the door of the parlor was opened, and who should heedlessly step into the room but the pious Mr. Lupin himself. Mr. Lupin was so transfixed by finding Ben there that for a moment or two he could not gather strength to retreat, and during that brief period Ben had shifted his chair until he got quite behind the reverend gentleman who, when he did step back, in consequence fell into Ben's lap. What do yer mean? Cried Ben in a voice of thunder. Oh, murder, murder, have mercy upon me. I only looked in as I was passing, to ask how all the family was. Yes, said Mr. Oakley, and because you, no doubt, heard I was going to Tottenham, to Judge Merivale's, to fit him with a pair of spectacles. Oh, dear, let me go, sir. I don't want you, said Ben, but as you are here, let's make an end of all differences and have a pint together. A pint? Yes, to be sure. By the look of your nose, I should say it knows pretty well what a pint is. Oh, dear, man is sinful alway. I bear no malice, and if the truly right-minded and pious Mrs. Oakley was only here, we may drink down all differences, Mr. A. Ben, Mr. Ben, thank you, sir. Oh, Mr. Lupin, cried Mrs. Oakley, at this moment bursting into the parlor. Is it possible that you can give your mind in this way to the Philistines? Is not this backsliding? Let us hope for the best, sister, said Mr. Lupin, with an evangelical twang. Let us hope for the best. If people will drink, they had much better drink with the saints, who may take some favorable opportunity of converting them, than with sinners. Sit down, mum, said Ben, and let's bury all animosities in the can. Easy does it. Don't you go, Johanna. Yes, but Ben, now don't. Ben saw by the direction of Johanna's eyes that the rev gentleman was resting one of his red raw-looking hands upon her arm, and, situated as she was, she could not get out of his way but by rising. Sit still, said Ben. Easy does it. Lifting up the can, then he pretended to drink out of it, and then brought it with such a thundering crack upon Mr. Lupin's head that it quite staggered him. Pause off, said Ben. Just attend to that before gentle hint, old friend. Mr. Lupin sat down with a groan. Now, mum, said Ben, who all the while had held fast the stone mug of mulled porter. Now, mum, here's some hot, that don't suit me so well as the cold. Perhaps you and Mr. Lupin will take that, while I cuts a few more sandwiches. He placed the jug before Mr. Lupin, who upon that left off rubbing his head, and said, I'm sure it would be highly unchristian of me to bear any malice, so, with the Lord's leave, I will evening partake of some of this worldly liquor, called mulled porter. Now while Mr. Lupin drank the savory stream from the jug, it assailed the senses of Mrs. Oakley, and when the porter was placed before her, she raised it to her lips, saying, If folks are civil to me, I'm civil to them, only I don't like my godly friends to be ill-treated. I'm sure nobody knows what I have gone through for my family, and nobody thinks what a mother and wife I have been. What would have become of Oakley if it hadn't been for me, is a question I often ask myself in the middle of the night. She's a wonderful woman, sighed Lupin. Oh, uncommon, said Ben. Let me go, whispered Johanna to Ben. No, no, wait for the fun. What fun? Oh, you'll see. You don't know what a trouble it has cost me, to be sure. Only wait a bit. There's a duck, do. Johanna did not like to say she would not, so she shrunk back in her chair in no small curiosity to know what was about to happen. Mrs. Oakley lifted the jug to her lips and drank deep. The aroma of the liquor must have been peculiarly grateful to the palate of Mrs. Oakley, for she certainly kept the jug at her mouth for a length of time that, to judge by the look of impatience upon the countenance of Mr. Lupin, was something outrageous. Sister, he said, mind your breath. Down came the jug, and Mrs. Oakley, when she could draw breath, gasped, Very good truly. A dash of allspice would make it delicious. Oh, sister, cried Lupin as he grasped the jug that was gently pushed towards him by Ben after Mrs. Oakley had set it down. Oh, sister, don't give your mind to carnal things, I beg of you. Why, she's drank it all. Mr. Lupin peered into the jug. He shut the right eye and looked in with the left, and then he shut the left eye and looked in with the right, and then he moved the jug about until the silver lid came down with a clap that nearly snapped his nose off. What's the matter? Said Ben. I don't exactly, mister. Lupin raised the lid again and peered into the jug in something of the fashion which popular belief supposes a crow to look into a marrow bone. At length he turned the jug upside down and struck the bottom of it with his pious knuckles. A huge toad fell sprawling upon the table. Mrs. Oakley gave a shriek and rushed into the yard. Mr. Lupin gave a groan and flew into the street, and the party in the parlor could hear them in a state of horrible sickness. Easy does it, said Ben. It's only a piece of wood shaped like a toad and painted, that's all. Now I'm easy. Chapter Roman 46. Tobias's heart is touched. Tobias is no worse all this time. But is he better? Has the godlike spirit of reason come back to the mind-benighted boy? Has that pure and gentle spirit recovered from its fearful thraldom, and once again opened its eyes to the world and the knowledge of the past? We shall see. Accompany us, reader, once again to the house of Colonel Jeffrey. You will not regret looking upon the pale face of poor Tobias again. The room is darkened, for the sun is shining brightly, and an almond tree in the front garden is not sufficiently umbrageous in its uncongenial soil to keep the bright rays from resting too strongly upon the face of the boy. There he lies. His eyes are closed, and the long lashes, for Tobias, poor fellow, was a pretty boy, hung upon his cheek, held down by the moisture of a tear. The face is pale, oh, so pale and thin, and the one arm and hand that lies outside the coverlet of the bed show the blue veins through the thin transparent skin. And all this is the work of Sweeney Todd. Well, well, heaven is patient. In the room is everything that can conduce to the comfort of the slumbering boy. Colonel Jeffrey has kept his word. And now that we have taken a look at Tobias, tread gently on tiptoe, reader, and come with us downstairs to the back drawing-room, where Colonel Jeffrey, his friend Captain Rathbone, the surgeon, and Mrs. Ragg are assembled. Mrs. Ragg is crying her eyes out, as the saying is. Sit down, Mrs. Ragg, said the colonel. Sit down and compose yourself. Come, now. there is no good done by this immoderate grief. But I can't help it. You can control it. Sit down. But I oughtn't to sit down. I'm the cook, you know, sir. Well, well, never mind that, if you are my cook. If I ask you to be seated, you may waive all ceremony. We want to ask you a few questions, Mrs. Rag. Upon this Tobias's mother did sit down, but it was upon the extreme edge of a chair, so that the slightest touch to it in the world would have knocked it from under her, and down she would have gone onto the floor. I'm sure, gentlemen, I'll answer anything I know, and more too, with all the pleasure in life, for, as I often said to poor Mr. Rag, who is dead and gone, and buried accordingly in St. Martin's, as he naturally may, and a long illness he had, and what with one thing and— Yes, yes, we know all that. Just attend to us for one moment, if you please, and do not speak until you thoroughly understand the nature of the question we are about to put to you. Certainly not, sir. Why should I speak? For as I often and often said, when— Hush, hush. Mrs. Rag was silent at last, and then the surgeon spoke to her calmly and deliberately, for he much wished her clearly to understand what he was saying to her. Mrs. Rag, we still think that the faculties of your son Tobias are not permanently injured, and that they are only suffering from a frightful shock. Yes, sir, they is frightfully shook. Hush. We think that if anything that greatly interested him could be brought to bear upon the small amount of perception that remains to him, he would recover. Do you now know of anything that may exercise a strong influence over him? Lord bless you, no, sir. How old is he? 15, sir. And you would hardly believe what a time of it I had with Tobias. All the neighbors said, well, if Mrs. Rag gets over this, she's a woman of 10,000, and Mrs. Whistlesides, as lived next door, and had twins herself, owned she never. Good God, will you be quiet, madam? Quiet, sir. I'm sure I haven't said 2 words since I've been in the blessed room. I appeal to the colonel. Well, well, it appears then, Mrs. Rag, you can think of nothing that is at all likely to aid us in this plan of awakening, by some strong impression, the dormant faculties of Tobias. No, gentlemen, no, I only wish I could, poor boy, and there's somebody else wasting away for grief about him. Poor little thing, when she heard that Tobias was mad, I'm sure I thought she'd have broke her heart, for if Tobias ever loved anybody in all the world, it was little Minna Gray. Ah, it's affecting to think how such children love each other, ain't it, sir? Lord bless you, the sound of her footstep was enough for him, and his eyes would get like 2 stars, as he'd clap his hands together, and cry, ah, that's dear Minna. That was before he went to Mr. Todd's, poor fellow. Truly, yes, sir, though, you haven't an idea. I think I have. Who is this Minna Gray, who so enthralled his boyish fancy? Why, she's Widow Gray's only child, and they live in Milford Lane, close to the Temple, you see. An evening Tobias used to go with me to drink tea with Mrs. Gray, as we was both bequeathed women in a world of trouble. You were what? Bequeathed. Bereaved, you mean, I suppose, Mrs. Rag. But how could you tell me that you knew of no means of moving Tobias's feelings? This Minna Gray, if he really loves her, is the very thing. Lor, sir, what do you mean? Why, I mean that if you can get this Minna Gray here, the possibility is that it will be the recovery of Tobias. At all events, it is the only chance of that kind that presents itself. If that fails, we must only trust to time. How old is this girl? About 14, sir, and though I say it, well, well, do you now, as a woman of the world, Mrs. Rag, think that she has an affection for poor Tobias? Do I think, Lord bless you, sir, she dotes on the ground he walks on? That she does, poor young thing. Hasn't she grizzled a bit? It puts me in mind of— Yes, yes, of course it does. Now, Mrs. Rag, you understand it is an object with our friend the colonel here, that no one but yourself should know that Tobias is here. Could you get this young girl to come to tea, for instance, with you? without telling her what else she is wanted for. Dear me, yes, sir, for, as I used to say to Mr. Rag, who is dead and gone, and buried in St. Martin's. Exactly. Now go and get her by all means, and when she comes here we will speak to her. But above all things be careful what you say. I think Mrs. Rag is already aware, said Colonel Jeffrey, that her son's safety, as well as her own, depends upon her discretion in keeping his whereabouts a profound secret. We will instruct this young girl when she comes here. Colonel Jeffrey, when he heard that the medical man was of opinion that the experiment of awakening the feelings of Tobias by bringing Minna Gray was worth trying, at once acquiesced and urged upon Mrs. Rag to go and see Minna. After many more speeches about as much to the purpose as those which we have already formed, Mrs. Rag got herself dressed and went upon her errand. She was instructed to say that she had found herself unequal to being a laundress in the Temple, and so had thought it was better to return to her own original occupation of cook in a gentleman's family, and that, as she had the liberty to do so, she wished Minna Gray to come and take tea with her. Thus forewarned of the part she was to play, Mrs. Rag started upon her mission, in which we need not follow her, for the result of it is all that we particularly care about, and that consisted in her bringing Minna in great triumph to the Colonel's house. Colonel Jeffrey and Captain Rathbone, who was staying to dine with him, saw the young girl as she came up the garden path. She was one of those small, delicately beautiful young creatures who seem specially made to love and be loved. Her light auburn hair hung in dancing curls down her fair cheeks, and her beautifully shaped lips and pearly teeth were of themselves features that imparted much loveliness to her countenance. She had, too, about her face all the charm of childish beauty, which bespoke her so young as to have lost little of that springtide grace, which, alas, is so fleeting. Add to all this a manner so timid, so gentle, and so retiring, that she seemed to be an inhabitant of some quieter world than this, and you have Minna Gray, who had crept into the boyish heart of poor Tobias, before your eyes. What a gentle, quiet-looking little creature, said the captain. She is truly, and what a contrast between her and Mrs. Rag, you mean? It does truly look like an elephant escorting a fawn. But Mrs. Rag has her good qualities. She has, and they are numerous. She is honest and candid as the day, and almost the only fault that can be laid to her charge is her garrulity. How do you mean to proceed? Why, Rathbone, I mean to condescend to do what, under any other circumstances, would be most unjustifiable, that is, listen to the conversation of Mrs. Rag with Minna Gray. I do so with the concurrence of the old lady who is to lead her to speak of Tobias, and it is solely for the purpose of judging if she really loves the boy, and making a proper report to the surgeon, that I do so. You are right enough, Geoffrey. The end in this case, at all events, sanctifies the means, however defective such a system of philosophy may be as a general thing. May I likewise be an auditor? I was going to ask you to so far oblige me, for I shall then have the advantage of your opinion. So you will do me a favor. There was a small pantry called a butler's pantry close to the kitchen, into which Mrs. Rag had taken Minna Gray. A door opened from this pantry into the kitchen, and another onto the landing at the foot of the kitchen stairs. Now Mrs. Rag was to take care that the door opening to the kitchen should be just ajar, and the Colonel and his friend could get into the pantry by the other mode of entrance. Colonel Jeffrey was a gentleman in the fullest sense of the term, and he kept no useless bloated menials about him, so the butler's pantry had no butler to interfere with him, the Colonel, in his own house. In the course of a few minutes Jeffrey and Rathbone were in the pantry, from where they could both see and hear what passed in the kitchen. To be sure, there was a certain air of restraint about Mrs. Rag at the thought that her master was listening to what passed, and that lady had a propensity to use hard words, of the meaning of which she was in the most delightful state of ignorance. But as it was to Minna Gray's conversation that the Colonel wanted to listen, these little peculiarities of Mrs. Rag upon the occasion did not much matter. Of course, Minna thought she had no other auditors than her old friend, Mrs. Rag was quite busy over the tea. Well, my dear, she said to Minna, this is a world we live in. Mrs. Rag, no doubt, intended this as a discursive sort of remark that may open any conversation very well, and lead to anything, and she was not disappointed, for it seemed to give to the young girl courage to utter that which was struggling to her lips. Mrs. Rag, she began, hesitatingly. Yes, my dear, let me fill your cup. Thank you, but I was going to say, a little more sugar? No, no, but I cannot place a morsel in my lips, Mrs. Rag, or think or speak to you of anything else until you have told me if you have heard any news of poor Tobias. Yes. Minna Gray placed her two little hands upon her face and burst into tears. Mrs. Rag made a snuffling sort of noise that, no doubt, was highly sympathetic, and after a pause of a few moments' duration, Minna gathered courage to speak again. You know, Mrs. Rag, the last you told me of him was that Mr. Todd had said he was mad, you know, and then you went to fetch somebody, and when you came back he was gone, and Mr. Todd told you the next day that poor Tobias ran off at great speed and disappeared. Has anything been heard of him since? Ah, my dear, alas, why do you cry, alas? Have you any more sad news to tell me? He was my only son, and all the world and his wife, as the saying is, can't tell how much I loved him. Minna Gray clasped her hands, and, while the tears coursed down her young fair cheeks, she said, and I, too, loved him. I always thought you did, my dear, and I'm sure, if you had been an angel out of heaven, my poor boy could not have thought more of you than he did. There was nothing that you said or did that was not excellent. He loved the ground you walked on, and a little old worsted mitten that you left at our place once, he used to wear round his neck, and kiss it when he thought no one was near, and say, this was my Minna's. The young girl let her head rest upon her hands, and sobbed convulsively. Lost, she said, and poor, kind, good Tobias is lost. No, my dear, it's a long lane that hasn't a turning. Pluck up your courage, and your courage will pluck up you. Keep sixpence in one pocket, and hope in another. When things are at the worst they mend. You can't get further down in a well than the bottom. Minna sobbed on. And so, my dear, added Mrs. Rag, I do know something more of Tobias. The young girl looked up. He lives. Laura Mussy, don't lay hold of a body so. Of course he lives, and, what's more, the doctor says that you ought to see him. He's upstairs. Here? Yes, to be sure. That's why I brought you to tea. Minna Gray took a fit of trembling, and then, making great efforts to compose herself, she said, tell me all. Well, my dear, it's an ill wind that blows nobody good, and so here I am, cook in as good a place as mortal woman would wish to have. I can't tell you all the rights of the story, because I don't know it. But certainly Tobias is upstairs in bed like a gentleman, only they say as his brains is something or another that makes him not understand anything or anybody, and so you see the doctor says if you speak to him, who knows but what he may come to himself. With an intuitive tact that belongs to some minds and which Minna Gray, despite the many disadvantages of her social position, possessed in an eminent degree, she understood at once the whole affair. Tobias was suffering from some aberration of intellect, which the voice, and the presence of one whom he loved fondly may dissipate. Would she shrink from the trial? Would her delicacy take the alarm, and overcome her great desire to recover Tobias? Oh, no. She loved him with a love that far outstripped all smaller feelings, and if ever there was a time when that love took complete possession of her heart, it was at this affecting moment, when she was told that her voice may have the magic power of calling back to him the wandering reason that harshness and ill usage had for a time toppled from its throne. Take me to him, she cried, take me to him. If all that is wanted to recover him be the voice of affection, he will soon be as he was once to us. Well, my dear, take your tea, and I'll go and speak to the colonel. It was now time for Colonel Jeffrey and his friend, the captain, to retire from the pantry, where we need not say that they had been pleased and affected listeners to what had passed between Mrs. Chapter Roman 47. Tobias recovers his intellect. In the course of a quarter of an hour the surgeon was sent for, and then Mrs. Ragg tapped at the drawing-room door, to give the colonel an account of the success of her mission, but he at once said to her, "We know all, Mrs. Ragg. We merely wish to see Tobias first, so that the medical gentleman may see exactly his condition, and then if you will bring Minna Gray here I will speak to her, and, I hope, put her quite at her ease as regards what she has to do." "Certainly, sir, certainly. Hold fast, and good comes at last." The surgeon and the two gentlemen went to Tobias's chamber, and there they found him in the same lethargic condition that, with only occasional interruptions, he had continued in since he had been in the colonel's house. These interruptions consisted in moaning appeals for mercy, and at times the name of Todd would pass his lips, in accents which showed what a name of terror it was to him. The surgeon placed his hand upon Tobias's head. "Tobias," he said, "Tobias." A deep sigh was his answer. "Tobias, Tobias." "Oh, God, God," cried Tobias, feebly, "spare me, I will tell nothing. Oh, spare me, Mr. Todd. Repent now. There, there, the blood. What a crowd of dead men. Dead, 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 all dead." "No better?" said the colonel. "Not a bit. On the contrary, the longer he remains in this condition, the less chance there will be of his recovery. I shall lose hope, if this last experiment produces no good results. Let us go and speak to the young girl." They all descended to the drawing-room, and Minna Gray was summoned. Colonel Jeffrey took her kindly by the hand and led her to a seat, and then he said to her, "Now, Miss Gray, remember that all here are friends to you and to Tobias, and that we all feel deeply for him and for you. You are very young, both of you, but that is no reason on earth why you should not love each other." Minna looked up at him through her tears, as she said, "Is he very, very ill?" "He is truly. We suspect, truly, I may say we know, that his mind has received so severe a shock that, for a time, it is deranged, but we hope that, as that derangement, you understand, has not arisen from any disease, pleasant and agreeable impressions may restore him. What we want you to do is to speak to him as you, no doubt, have been in the habit of doing in happier times." "Yes, yes, sir. I think you know exactly what we mean." "I do, sir, truly I do." "Oh, bless you, sir, she understands," said Mrs. Ragg. "A nod is as good as a wink to a blind horse, you know, gentlemen. Handsome is as handsome does, as I used to say to the late Mr. Ragg, who is naturally dead and gone, and accordingly buried in St. Martin's." "You can tell us that another time, madam," said the surgeon. "At present, you see we are rather busy. Now, Miss Gray, if you will have the goodness to come with me, we will see what can be done for our young friend above stairs." Poor Minna Gray, how her color went and came like the sunlight of an April day, as she accompanied the three gentlemen and Mrs. Ragg upstairs to Tobias's chamber. How she trembled when they reached the landing, and what a faintness came over her when the door was opened, and she saw that dimly lighted room. "Courage," whispered Colonel Jeffrey to her. "This is a holy errand you are upon." "Yes, yes, cut your coat according to your cloth," said Mrs. Ragg, who, provided she thought of the proverb, was not very particular with regard to its applicability to the circumstances under which she uttered it. "Keep your feet to the length of your sheet." "Pray, madam," said the surgeon, who seemed to have quite a horror of Mrs. Ragg, "pray, madam, oblige me by being silent. A still tongue makes a wise head." "Good God, Colonel, will you speak to her?" "Hush, Mrs. Ragg," said Colonel Jeffrey. "Hush. You will perhaps be the means of spoiling this important effort for the recovery of your son if you are not perfectly quiet." Thus admonished, Mrs. Ragg shrank into the background a little, and the colonel went to the window and let in a little more light. The surgeon conducted Minna Gray to the bedside, and she looked upon the boy, who had won her childish heart through a world of tears. It is Tobias. Is he much altered?" Oh, yes, much, much. He used to look so happy. His face was like a piece of sunshine. She sank upon a chair that was by the bedside and sobbed. This will never do, said the surgeon. Wait, oh, wait a little, she whispered. Only wait a little. I shall be better soon. The surgeon nodded, and then stepping back to the colonel and the captain, he said, this burst of grief must have its way, or it will mar all. We must have patience. They all hid themselves behind the folds of the bed furniture, and Mrs. Ragg sat down in an obscure corner of the room, working her knee up and down, as though she were nursing an imaginary baby. Gradually the sobs of Minna Gray subsided until all was still. She then gently took one of the thin wasted hands of poor Tobias in her own, and looked at it. Oh, how changed it was! She then bent over him and looked in his face. What primitive lines of care were there, battling with rounded muscles of early youth? Then she summoned all her courage to speak. She placed her lips close to his ear, and in the soft, sweet accents that had long before sank deep into his heart, she said, Tobias, my Tobias. The boy started. Dear Tobias, it is I. Minna. He opened his eyes, which had been closed and seemingly cemented by tears. Tobias, Tobias, dear. A smile, a heavenly smile. It was the first that had played upon his lips since he set foot in the shop of Sweeney Todd, now broke like a sunbeam over his face. I am mad, mad, he said, gently, or that is the voice of my Minna. It is your Minna. It is, Tobias, look at me. He rose up in the bed, he cast one glance at the well-known and dearly remembered face, and then, with a gasping sob of joy, he clasped her in his arms. It's done, said the surgeon. Thank God, said Colonel Jeffrey. Mrs. Ragg drew her breath so hard through her nose that she made a noise like some wild animal in the agonies of suffocation. You really know me, Tobias? Know you, dear? Oh, why should I not know you, Minna? God bless you. May he bless you, Tobias. They wept together. Minna forgot that there was anybody in the world but herself and Tobias, and parting the long straggling masses of his hair from before his face, she kissed him. For my sake, Tobias, now you will take care of yourself, and recover quickly. Dear, dear Minna. He seemed never tired of holding her hands and kissing them. Suddenly the surgeon stepped forward with a small vial in his hand. Now, Tobias, he said, you are much better, but you must take this. The look of surprise and consternation with which Tobias regarded him was beyond description. Then he glanced at the bedstead and the rich hangings, and he said, Oh, Minna, what is all this? Where am I? Is it a dream? Give it to him, said the surgeon, handing the vial to Minna. She placed the neck of it to his lips. Drink, Tobias. Had it been deadly poison she had offered him, Tobias would have taken it. The vial was drained. He looked in her face again with a smile. If this is truly a dream, my Minna, may I never awaken? Dear, dear one, Tobias restored to his senses by Minna's assistance. Tobias restored to his senses by Minna's assistance. He fell back upon the pillow. The smile still lingered upon his face, but the narcotic which the surgeon had administered to him had produced its effect, and the enfeebled Tobias fell into deep sleep. Minna Gray looked rather alarmed at this sudden falling off of Tobias from waking to sleeping, but the surgeon quieted her fears. All is right, he said. He will awaken in some hours wonderfully refreshed, and I have the pleasure of now predicting his perfect cure. You do not know, said Colonel Jeffrey, what pleasure that assurance gives me. And me, said the captain. Minna looked all that she thought, but she could not speak, and Mrs. Ragg still kept up the mysterious noise she produced by hard breathing with her mouth close shut. Now, madam, said the surgeon to her, our young friend must be left alone for some hours. It is now 6 o'clock, and I do not expect he will awaken until 12. When he does so, I am very much mistaken if you do not all of you find him perfectly restored and composed, although very weak. I will take care to be at hand, said the colonel. Miss Gray, perhaps you will call and see how he is to tomorrow, and all I can say is that you will be quite welcome to my house whenever you think proper. But let me impress upon you one thing. What is it, sir? The absolute necessity of your keeping Tobias's place of abode and anything concerning him a most profound secret. I will do so. If you do not, you will not only endanger the cause of justice, but in all probability his life, for he has an enemy with great resources, and of the most unscrupulous disposition in the use of them. I say this much to you, because the least indiscretion may be fatal. I will guard the secret, sir, as I would guard his life. That will do. Now come downstairs, and let us have a glass of wine to drink to the speedy restoration to perfect health of Tobias. Come, Rathbone, what do you think? Shall we be one too many yet for Todd? I begin to think we shall. I feel certain of it. So soon as we see that Tobias is sufficiently well to make any statement, it will be necessary to send for Sir Richard Blunt. Certainly. And then I hope and trust that we shall get at something that will elucidate the mystery that is still attached to the fate of poor Thornhill. Ah, I fear he is gone. Dead. Yes, that fatal string of pearls has heralded him to death, I fear, but perhaps we shall hear a something concerning that yet from Tobias. They all sat down in the drawing-room, and with tearful pleasure Minna Gray drank a glass of wine to the health of Tobias, after which Mrs. Ragg saw her home again to Milford Lane, and no doubt all the road from this colonel's house to there did not want for a prolific subject of conversation. Chapter Roman 48. Johanna makes a new confidant. We left the spectacle maker and his family rather in a state of confusion. Big Ben the beefeater had had his revenge upon both Mrs. Oakley and the saint, and it was a revenge that really did them no harm, so that in that respect it had turned out well. The ref, Josiah Lupin, did not return to the house, but Mrs. Oakley, in a terrible state of prostration from the effects of the sickness that had come over her, staggered again into the parlor. She looked at Mr. Oakley, as she said, "If you were half a man you would take the life of that villain for treating me in the way he has. I have no doubt but he meant to take the life of the pious Mr. Lupin, and so add him to the list of martyrs." "My dear," said the spectacle maker, "if Mr. Lupin intrudes himself into my house, and any friend of mine turns him out, I am very much obliged to him. Perhaps you would be equally obliged to this monster, whom you call your friend, if he would turn me out." Mr. Oakley shook his head as he said, "My dear, there are some burthens which can be got rid of, and some that must be borne." "Come, come, Mother Oakley," said Ben, "don't bear malice. You played me a trick the last time I came here, and now I have played you one. That's all. It wasn't in human nature not to do it, so don't bear malice." Mrs. Oakley, if she had been in a condition to do so, no doubt would have carried on the war with Big Ben, but she decidedly was not, and after a shudder or two, which looked as though she thought the toad was beginning again to oppress her, she rose to leave the room. "Mother," said Johanna, "it was not a real toad." "But you are," said Mrs. Oakley, sharply. "You have no more feeling for your mother than as if she were a brickbat." Feeling now that at all events she had had the last word at somebody, Mrs. Oakley made a precipitate retreat, and sought the consolations and solitude of her own chamber. Mr. Oakley was about to make some speech, which he prefaced with a sigh, when someone coming into the shop called his attention, and he left Johanna and Big Ben the beefeater together in the parlor. The moment they were alone, Ben began shaking his head and making some very mysterious signs, which completely mystified Johanna. Truly she began to be afraid that Ben's intellects were not quite right, although an ordinary observer may have very well supposed there was something the matter with his nether garments, for he pointed to them repeatedly, and shook his head at Johanna. "What is the matter, cousin?" she said. "Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, 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 are you ill?" "No, but I only wonder as you ain't. Didn't I see you in Fleet Street with these here on?" Oh, not these here exactly, but another pair. These would be a trifle too large for you." "Oh, dear me, My heart bled all for to see such a young and delicate little puss as you a taking to wear the thingammies so soon. Johanna now began to understand what Ben meant, namely, that he had seen her in Fleet Street disguised in male attire, with her young friend Arabella Wilmot. "Oh, Ben," she said, "you must not think ill of me on that account." But, said Ben, rather hesitatingly, as if he were only putting a doubtful proposition, wasn't it rather unusual? Yes, Ben, but there were reasons why I put on such garments. Surely it was better to do so than to go without any, said Ben. No, no, I did not say that. I mean it was better for me to forget a little of that maiden delicacy than to let him. She burst into tears. "Hulloa," cried Ben, as he immediately folded her in an immense embrace that went very near to smothering her. "Don't you cry, and you may wear what you like, and I'll come and help you to put 'em on. Come, come, there's a nice little dear, don't you cry. Lord bless you, you know how fond I am of you, and always was since you was a little tottering thing and couldn't say my name right. Don't you cry, you shall wear 'em as often as you like, and I'll go behind you in the street, and if anybody only so much as says half a word to you, I'll be down upon 'em. Fetch 'em now and put 'em on, my dear." Johanna must have laughed if her life had depended upon her gravity, for all that Ben said upon the subject was uttered in the sheer simplicity of a kind heart, and well she knew that in his rough way he doted on her, and thought there was not such another being in the whole world as she, and yet he looked upon her as a child, and the imperceptible flight of time had made no difference in Ben's ideas concerning Johanna. She was still to him the sweet little child he had so often dandled upon his knee, and brought fruit and sweetmeats to, when such things were great treasures. After a few moments he let her go, and Johanna was able to draw breath again. "Ben," she said, "I will tell you all." "All what?" "How I came to put on the "Oh, these here. Very good. Cut on, and let's know all the particulars." "I suppose you felt cold, my dear, eh?" "No, no, no." "Well then, tell it quick, for I was always a mortal bad hand at guessing. Your father is fitting an old gentleman with a pair of spectacles, and he seems hard to please, so we shall have lots of time." "Go on. Your good opinion is of such moment to me," said Johanna, "for I have very few to love me, now that you have seen me in such a disguise. I should feel unhappy if I did not tell why I wore it." Ben lent the most attentive ear to what she said, and then Johanna briefly and distinctly told him all the story of Mark and Jestry, and how he had, as she thought, mysteriously disappeared at the barber's shop in Fleet Street. It will be seen that she still clung to the idea that the Thornhill of the arrived ship was no other than her lover. Ben heard her all out with the most fixed attention. His mouth and eyes gradually opened wider and wider as she proceeded, partly from wonder at the whole affair, and partly from intense admiration at the way in which she told it, which he thought was better than any book he had ever read. When she had concluded, Ben again folded her in his arms, and she had to struggle terribly to get away. "My dear child," he said, "you are a prodigy. Why, there's not an animal as ever I knew comes near you." And so the poor fellow had his throat cut in the barber's for his string of pearls. "I fear he was murdered." "Not a doubt of it." "You really think so, Ben?" The tone of agony with which this question was put to him, and the look of utter desolation which accompanied it, alarmed Ben, and he hastily said, "Come, come, I didn't mean that. No doubt something has happened, but it will be all right some day or another, you may depend." Oh, dear, oh, dear. The idea of your going to watch the barber with some boy's clothes on. Tell me what I can do, for my heart and brain are nearly distracted by my sufferings." Ben looked all round the room, and then up at the ceiling, as though he had a hope and expectation of finding some startling suggestion written legibly before his eyes somewhere. At length he spoke, saying, "I tell you what, Johanna, my dear, whatever you do, don't you put on them things again. You leave it all to me." "But what will you do? What can you do, Ben?" "Well, I don't know exactly, but I'll let you know when it's done. But do not run into any danger for my sake." "Danger?" Danger? I should like to see the barber that would interfere with me. No, my dear, no. I'm too well used to all sorts of animals for that. I'll see what I can do, and let you know all about it tomorrow, and in the meantime, you stick to the petticoats, and don't be putting on those thingamies again. You leave it to me, will you now? Until tomorrow? Yes, I'll be here tomorrow about this time, my dear, and I hope I shall have some news for you. Well, I declare, it's just like a book, it is. You are quite a prodigy. Ben would have treated Johanna to another of the suffocating embraces, but she contrived to elude him, and as by this time the old gentleman in the shop was suited with a pair of spectacles, Mr. Oakley returned to the parlor. Johanna placed her finger upon her lips as an indication to Ben that he was to say nothing to her father of what had passed between them, for, although Mr. Oakley knew generally the story of his daughter's attachment to Mark in Jestry, as the reader is aware, he knew nothing of the expedition to Fleet Street in disguise. Ben, feeling that he had now an important secret to keep, shut his mouth hard for fear it should escape, and looked so mysterious that any one more sharp-sighted than the old spectacle maker must have guessed that something very unusual was the matter. Mr. Oakley, however, had no suspicions, but as this state of things was very irksome to Ben, he soon rose to take his leave. I shall look in again tomorrow, he said. Cousin Oakley, we shall be glad to see you, said Mr. Oakley. Yes, added Johanna, who felt it incumbent upon her to say something. We shall be very glad to see you truly. Ah, said her father, you and Ben were always great friends. And we always shall be, said Ben. Then he thought that he would add something wonderfully clever, so as completely to ward off all suspicions of Oakley's, if he had any, and he added, she ain't like some young creatures that think nothing of putting on what they shouldn't. Oh dear, no, not she. Bye, I'll come tomorrow. Ben was quite pleased when he got out of the house, for among the things that he Ben found it difficult to do was to keep a secret. Well, he said, when he was fairly in the open air, if I ain't rather nonplussed at all this. What shall I do? This was a question much easier asked than answered, as Ben found, but, however, he felt an irresistible desire to go and have a look at the shop of Sweeney Todd. I can easily, he said, go to Fleet Street, and then, if I find myself late, I can take a boat at Blackfriars for the Tower Stairs, and after all get into dinner comfortably enough. With this conclusion, Ben set off at a good pace down Snow Hill, and was soon at the beginning of Fleet Street. He walked on until he came to Sweeney Todd's shop, and there he paused. Now we have previously remarked that there was one great peculiarity in the shop window of Todd, and that was that the articles in it were so well arranged that someone always was in the way of obtaining any view from the outside into the establishment. Todd was therefore secure against the dangers arising from peeping and prying. Big Ben placed himself close to the window and made an attempt, by flattening his nose against the panes of glass, to peep in, but it was all in vain. He could not obtain the smallest glimpse into the inside. Confound it, he cried, what a cunning sort of animal this is, to be sure. He won't let one peep through the bars of his cage, that he won't. Now Sweeney Todd became aware, by the additional darkness of his shop, that someone must be quite close to the window, and therefore, availing himself of a peep-hole that he had expressly for the purpose of reconnoitering the passing world without, he took a long look at Big Ben. It was some moments before Ben caught sight of a great eye in the window of Sweeney Todd glancing at him. This eye appeared as if it were set in the center of a placard, which announced in glowing language the virtues of some condiment for the hair or the skin, and it had a most ferocious aspect. Big Ben looked fascinated and transfixed to the spot, and then he muttered to himself, well, if that's his eye, it's a rum un. Howsomedever, it's no use staying outside. I'll pop in and get shaved, and then I shall be able to look about me. Who's afraid? As Ben turned round, he saw a plainly attired man close to his elbow, but he took no notice of him, although from his close proximity to him it was quite impossible that the plain-looking man could have failed to overhear what Ben said. In another moment Big Ben was in Todd's shop. Shaved or dressed, sir? said Todd. Shaved, said Ben, as he cast his eyes round the shop. Looking for anything, sir? Said Todd. Oh, no, nothing at all. Only a friend of mine, you see, said this was such a nice shop, you understand, to be shaved in. Was your friend finished off here, sir? Well, I rather think he was. Pray sit down. Fine weather, sir, for the season. Now, Pussy, my dear, get out of the way of the hot water. Todd was addressing an imaginary cat. Are you fond of animals, sir? Lord bless me, I'm fond of all the world. God made us all, sir, from a creeping beetle to a beefeater. Very likely, said Big Ben, as he seated himself in the barber's chair. And so, added Todd, as he mixed up a lather and made the most horrible faces, we ought to love each other in this world of care. How is your friend, sir, who was so kind as to recommend my shop? I should like to know. What, is he in eternity? Dear me. Well, I rather think he is. Was it the gentleman who was hung last Monday, sir? Confound you, no. But there's somebody else who I think will be hung some Monday. I tell you what it is, Mr. Barber, my friend never got further than this infernal shop, so I'm come to inquire about him. What sort of man, sir? Said Todd, with the most imperturbable coolness. What kind of man? Yes, sir, if you favor me with his description, perhaps I may be able to tell you something about him. By the by, if you will excuse me for one moment, I'll bring you something that a gentleman left here one day. What is it? I will satisfy you directly, sir, and I'm quite certain your mind will be at rest about your friend, sir, whoever he was. Remarkable weather, sir, for the time of year. Todd had got only halfway from the shop to the parlor, when the shop door opened, and the plain-looking man walked in, the very same plain man who had stood so close to Big Ben at Todd's window. Shaved, he said. Todd paused. If, sir, you will call again in a few minutes, or if you have any call to make and can conveniently look in as you come back. No, I'll take a seat. Todd and the beefeater have some words. Todd and the beefeater have some words. The plain-looking man sat down close to the door and looked as calm and as unconcerned as any one possibly could. The look with which Todd regarded him for a moment, and only one moment, was truly horrible. He then quietly went into his back parlor. In a moment he entered with a common kid glove and said to Ben, "Did this belong to your friend? A gentleman left it here one day." Ben shook his head. "I really don't know," he said. "Come, Mr. Barber, finish the shaving, for that gentleman is waiting." Ben was duly shaved, while the plain-looking man sat quietly in the chair by the door, and when the operation was finished, Ben looked in Todd's face and said, solemnly, "A string of pearls." "Sir," said Todd, without changing countenance in the least. "A string of pearls. Murder. A what, sir?" Ben looked staggered. He well knew that if he had cut anyone's throat for a string of pearls, that such words said to him would have driven him frantic. But when he saw no change in Todd's face, he began to think that, after all, the accusation must be unfounded, and muttering to himself, "It must be nothing but the child's fancy after all," he hastily threw down twopence and left the shop. "Now, sir," said Todd to the plain-looking man. "Thank you." The plain-looking man rose, and as he did so he seemed just to glance through the door into the street as it was opened by Ben. Immediately his face was full of smiles as he cried, "Ah, Jenkins, is that you? Ha, I missed you this morning. Excuse me, Mr. Barber, I'll look in again. My old friend Jenkins has just gone by." With this, out he flew from Todd's shop like a shot, and was gone towards Temple Bar, before the barber could move or lay down the shaving cloth which he had in his hands all ready to tuck under his chin. Todd stood for a few moments in an attitude of irresolution. Then he spoke. "What does all this mean?" he said. "Is there danger? Curses on them both. I would have, but no matter. I must be wrong, very wrong. That string of pearls may yet destroy me. Destroy? No, no, no. They must have yet more wit before they get the better of me. and yet how I calculated upon the destruction of that man. Chapter Roman 49. The Vaults of St. Dunstan's. A ponderous stone was raised in the flooring of St. Dunstan's church. The beadle, the churchwarden, and the workmen shrunk back, until they could get no further. "Ain't it a norrid smell?" said the beadle. Then the plain-looking man who had been at Sweeney Todd's advanced. He was no other than Sir Richard Blunt, and whispering to the churchwarden, he said, "If what I expect be found here, we cannot have too few witnesses to it. Let the workmen be dismissed." "As you please, Sir Richard." "Faugh! What an awful stench there is. I have no doubt they won't be sorry to get away. Here, my men, here's half-a-crown for you. Go and get something to drink and come back in an hour." "Thank your honor," cried one of the men. "And sure, by St. Patrick's bones, we want something to drink, for the stench in the church sticks in my blessed throat like a marrow bone, so it does." "Get out," said the beadle. "I hate slow people and heerish. They thinks no more of beetles than nothink in the world." The workmen retired, laughing, and when the church was clear of them, the churchwarden said to Sir Richard Blunt, "Did you ever, Sir Richard, smell such a horrid charnel house sort of stench as comes up from that opening in the floor of the old church?" Sir Richard shook his head, and was about to say something, when the sound of a footstep upon the pavement of the church made him look round, and he saw a fat, pursy-looking individual approaching. "Oh, it's Mr. Vickley, the overseer," said the beadle. "I hopes as yer is well, Mr. Vickley. Here's a horrid smell." "God bless me," cried the overseer, as with his fat finger and thumb he held his snub nose. "What's this? It's worse and worse." "Yes, sir," said the beadle. "Talking of the smell, we have let the cat out of the bag, I think." "Good gracious, put her in again, then. It can't be a cat." "Begging your pardon, Mr. Vickley, I only spoke anatomically. If you comes here, sir, you'll find that all the smell comes out of this here opening." "What, an opening close to my pew, my family pew, where I every Sunday enjoy my repose, I mean my hopes of everlasting glory? Upon my life, I think it's a piece of d impudence to open the floor of the church close to my pew. If there was to be anything of the sort done, couldn't it have been done somewhere among the free sittings, I should like to know?" "Mr. Vickley," said Sir Richard, "pray be satisfied that I have sufficient authority for what I do here, and if I had thought it necessary to take up the flooring of your pew while you had been in it, I should have done it." "And pray, sir," said Mr. Vickley, swelling himself out to as large a size as possible, and glancing at his watch chain, to see that all the seals hung upon the convexity of his paunch as usual, "who are you?" Oh dear, said the beadle. Convulsions. What a thing it is to see authorities a-going it at each other. Gentlemen, convulsions. Ain't there lots of poor people in the world? Don't you be a-going it at each other." "I am a magistrate," said Sir Richard, "and I am an overseer." "Ah, you may be an overseer or an underseer, if you like. I am going to search the vaults of St. Dunstan's." The churchwarden now took the overseer aside, and after a while succeeded in calming down his irascibility. "Oh, well, said Mr. Vickley, authorities is authorities, and if so be it as the horrid smell in the church can be got rid of, I'm as willing as possible. It has often prevented me sleeping, I mean listening to the sermon. Your servant, sir. I shall, of course, be very happy to assist you." The beadle wiped his face with his large yellow handkerchief as he said, "Now this here is delightful and affecting, to see authorities agreeing together. Lord, why should authorities snap each other's noses off, when there's lots o' poor people as can be said anything to and done anything to, and they may snap themselves?" Well, added Mr. Vickley, "I am quite satisfied. Of course, if there's anything disagreeable to be done in a church, and it can be done among the free seats, it's all the better, and truly, if the smell in St. Dunstan's could have been kept away from the respectable part of the congregation. I don't know that it would have mattered much. Convulsions, cried the beadle. It wouldn't have mattered at all, gentlemen. But only think, oh, the bishop smelling it. Upon my life, gentlemen, I did think, when I saw the right ref, Father in God's nose a looking up and down, like a cat when she smells a bunch o' lights, and knowed as it was all owing to the smell in the church, I did think as I could have gone down through the floor, cocked hat and all, that I did. Convulsions, that was a moment. It was, said the churchwarden. Mercy, mercy, said Mr. Vickley. The beadle was so affected at the remembrance of what had happened at the confirmation that he was forced to blow his nose with an energy that produced a trumpet-like sound in the empty church, and echoed again from nave to gallery. Sir Richard Blunt had let all the discourse go on without paying the least attention to it. He was quietly waiting for the foul vapors that arose from the vaults beneath the church to dissipate a little before he ventured upon exploring them. Now, however, he advanced and spoke. Gentlemen, I hope I shall be able to rid St. Dunstan's of the stench which for a long time has given it so unenviable a reputation. If you can do that, said the churchwarden, you will delight the whole parish. It has been a puzzle to us all where the stench could come from. Where is the puzzle now? Said Sir Richard Blunt, as he pointed to the opening in the floor of the church, from where issued like a steamy vapor such horrible exhalations. Why, certainly it must come from the vaults. But, said the overseer, the parish books show that there has not been any one buried in any of the vaults directly beneath the church for 30 years. Then, said the beadle, it's a very wrong thing of respectable parishioners, for, of course, them as has waltz is respectable, to keep quiet for 30 years and then begin stinking like blazes. It's uncommon wrong. Convulsions. Sir Richard Blunt took a paper from his pocket and unfolded it. From this plan, he said, that I have procured of the vaults of St. Dunstan's, it appears that the stone we have raised, and which was numbered 30, discloses a stone staircase communicating with 2 passages, from which all the vaults can be reached. I propose searching them, and now, gentlemen, and you, Mr. Beadle, listen to me. They all 3 looked at him with surprise as he took another letter from his pocket. Here, he said, are a few words from the Secretary of State. Pray read them, Mr. Vickley. The overseer read as follows. The Secretary of State presents his compliments to Sir Richard Blunt and begs to say that as regards the affair at St. Dunstan's, Sir Richard is to consider himself armed with any extraordinary powers he may consider necessary. Now, gentlemen, added Sir Richard Blunt, if you will descend with me into the vaults, all I require of you is the most profound secrecy with regard to what you may see there. Do you fully understand? Yes, stammered Mr. Vickley, but I rather think I would as soon not go. Then, sir, be silent regarding the going of others. Will you go, sir? To the churchwarden. Why, yes, I think I ought. I shall be obliged to go. I may feel the want of a witness. We will take you with us, Mr. Beadle, of course. Me, convulsions. Yes, you go, you know, ex officio, the deuce, I don't want to go. Oh, convulsions, we cannot dispense with your services, said the churchwarden. If you refuse to go, it will be my duty to lay your conduct before the vestry. Though, get a torch, said Sir Richard Blunt, and I will lower it down the opening in the floor. If the air is not so bad as to extinguish the light, it will not be too bad for us to breathe for a short space of time. Most reluctantly, and with terrible misgivings of what may be the result of the frightful adventure into which he was about to be dragged, the beadle fetched a link from the vestry. It was lighted, and Sir Richard Blunt, tying a string to it, let it down into the passage beneath the church. The light was not extinguished, but it burnt feebly, and with but a wan and sickly lustre. It will do, said Sir Richard. We can live in that place, although a protracted stay may be fatal.